Figure TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. You know I'm your humble host. The y'all mean of revolution, and black people refuse to allow the racists to pretend like Charlie Kirk is Dr. King. Before we get into that, be sure to wipe your feet. That means hit the like button. You in the House of Revolution. Like, share, subscribe, support the platform. Y'all will. The United States is in a big-time struggle of dictatorship and fascism. Trump done struck down Jimmy Kimmel. Salute, Queen. This is big. And I have pledged to fight these bigots every day. They can ban us. They can try to do whatever they want. We won't pretend like Charlie Kirk is a racist. They got us fucked up. Let's get into the content. Salute, y'all.
Deserve to be assassinated.
Keep riding on this, y'all.
But I'm overwhelmed seeing the flags of the United States of America at half-staff calling this nation to honor and venerate a man who was an unapologetic racist and spent all of his life sowing seeds of division and hate into this land. And hearing people with selective rage who are mad about Charlie Kirk but didn't give a damn about Melissa Hortman and her husband when they were shot.
On everything. They were as pissed as they said he is. I've been seeing people like Heavy Duty Country and other bigots sitting on their platforms with all kind of weapons and all kind of shit, talking cheap. They've been talking Civil War forever. That's how y'all been doing is running y'all mouth. Go ahead. Fuck with black people. Think you gonna come outside and bully us. Talking about showing up what podcast said. I swear to God, we can't wait for any of that time. I'm hoping that I get any of that action on these bigots. Talking about they gonna punk us, check us, and we're gonna worship Charlie Kirk like hell you are, and like hell we ever will. It'll be the end of America.
Down in their home, tell me I ought to have compassion for the death of a man who had no respect for my own life. I am sorry, but there's nowhere in Bible where we are taught to honor evil. And how you die does not redeem how you lived. You do not become a hero in your death when you are a weapon of the enemy in your life.
I said these bootlickers, a lot of these bootlickers, even Obama came out and said some shit. I was proud, even though they don't got no choice. The white supremacists riding on all these people, and they really mad at these preachers. It's about time they do some good fucking work and stand up and tell the fucking truth. We need their platforms. Jamal Bryant, good. You tell the truth about Charlie Kirk, goddamn it. We know y'all the bootleg. Redeem y'all goddamn self. And don't shut up. Oh, a lot of people on TV, they scared, all the bootleg on TV scared to death. They know they can get fired at any goddamn moment. These preachers, y'all they can't fire these preachers. You niggas been getting tax-free money forever. Y'all better say something.
I can abhor the violence that took your life, but I don't have to celebrate how you.
Revolutionary salute to my brother Roscoe for the donation to the war chest. Revolution is a way of life. Absolutely appreciate the love, family. Say salute, King. Why do you want to express condolences again? Keep standing on business. I appreciate the condolences. My family appreciate condolences. RIP to my pops. The revolution is a way of life. That's why I'm here. You want me to keep riding? He telling me stand up right now. I can't stop y'all. It's hard, but it's fair. We got to keep fighting. That's what my pops was about. Appreciate you helping me keep the lights on. Here at the House of Revolution. Salute.
How you chose to live.
For going on a week now, we've had the white right engaged in an orgy of phony outrage and all of this counterfeit concern. It's essentially a more obnoxious version of what the country endured after 9/11. W and his administration were already underwater when it came to public approval. These guys were floundering, and on top of that, their little right-wing agenda had stalled out. They desperately needed something that they could point to in order to try to ramrod their agenda down the country's throat. And then W, in his gargantuan incompetence, basically allowed 9/11 to happen. When you get a presidential daily briefing warning you that there's an imminent terrorist attack and who it's from, and you just sit there and go, well, I'm sure it'll be all right. Yeah, you basically allowed it to occur. And rather than be horrified at his gargantuan incompetence that allowed thousands of Americans to be killed, instead, what W and the Republicans did was they waved the bloody flag of 9/11 every single chance they got. As far as they were concerned, this was going to be their shield to ward off any and all responsibility and accountability as they started driving all kinds of unpopular, undemocratic, and unconstitutional policies straight through a Congress that was compliant. This is what's happening right now. Except instead of having thousands of people killed, it was only one. So who's pushing back against what is obviously a political agenda trying to masquerade itself as some sort of phony concern? Well, it turns out that there's a few black preachers who had something to say about all this. They recognize what was going on and they're calling it out, as they should. Now, in the case of this pastor in particular, he's pointing out the unabashed hypocrisy of the white right, who didn't say a word when a MAGA Trump reporter went on a killing spree in Minnesota 3 months ago, shooting 4 people and even a dog. In this case, this political assassin murdered the Democratic Speaker of the Minnesota legislature, Melissa Hortman, along with killing her husband and their dog. And in addition to that, he shot and injured another Democratic legislator, Minnesota State Senator John Hoffman, and his wife Yvette, both of whom survived the attempt on their lives, but they're still in recovery, truth be told. That's what happened just a few months ago. Interesting how political violence wasn't on anyone's radar then. Instead, Donald Trump was sidestepping the issue and the Republicans weren't really discussing it at all. And truth be told, the Democrats, they didn't seem to be too terribly bothered by it either. And on a side note, while obviously you can't help but agree with what this pastor was saying, there were some other remarks that he made during this sermon that we could have done without. Him shoehorning in other categories based on their lifestyle, or even deciding that he's going to be mentioning the ICE raids. And speaking of ICE raids, when the ICE raids were going on, a lot of people were angry and upset that black people, specifically foundational black Americans, didn't put on the cape and come to anyone's rescue. We decided that, hey, we're sick and tired of us always being the ones who have to rescue everybody, especially when everyone else makes it a habit to spit in our faces. We were leaving everybody else to stand up for themselves, which we should have done a long time ago. And the white right wasn't bothered by that at all because they weren't rounding up any white people. Well, now Charlie Kirk is dead, and we're seeing those exact same folks on the white right who were only too glad that black folks didn't have anything to say about the ICE raids. Now they're making demands that black people have to care. In fact, we're seeing demands that we have to mourn for Charlie Kirk no matter what. And we got people threatening us because we're not. That's what the HBCU threats are actually about. It's no different than we had trash like Laura Ingraham complaining and whining like a pig stuck under a gate. Oh, those NBA players, they just need to shut up and dribble. And then when you had the protest in Hong Kong, people who were out there demonstrating against the Chinese government, which, by the way, was fueled, funded, and organized by the United States, when those protests, quote unquote, were going down, those exact same right-wing nuts were whining and complaining and saying, how come these NBA players are playing games in China and they're just going along and they're not doing anything? How come they're not saying anything? Well, gee, you can't have it both ways. It can't be you guys need to speak up and at the same time shut up and dribble. So that's what the NBA players did, and that was the right thing to do. It's like, hey, we can't say anything. We're just going to shut up and dribble. That's what's supposed to happen. Tell all of these people, we're not lending our voice to anything that is not supporting our power. And the same thing goes for Charlie Kirk. All of his would-be boosters and cheerleaders, all of this phony outrage that they're putting on, they know exactly what a racist Charlie Kirk was. What they want is for black people to get out there and say, oh, well, he wasn't that bad, right? They're looking for us to lend our own infallible moral legitimacy to an out-and-out anti-black racist. That's what this is really about. Because they can't try to do any sort of quickie, half-brained rehabilitation effort on his putrid reputation unless they can get some dumb, gullible Negroes to go along with it, which unfortunately there's been a handful, which is why you got the black grassroots who have to speak up. You know, it feels like it was just last week the racial obsession of the white right was with a Ukrainian woman on a train. Wait, it was just last week. That is, up until Wednesday, and they would still be pushing that phony white outrage boulder up the hill. That is, if a bigger boulder hadn't come along. The white right's furious because of the fact that you've had all of these billionaires out here, all of these low-key white supremacist trash who have been deciding that they're going to be doing tributes for Charlie Kirk, and they're trying to whitewash his reputation as a matter of, well, we need to normalize this guy. And what's been happening is you've had black folks who are saying, hold up. If you're going to sit here and praise this guy as some sort of First Amendment champion, let's go ahead and tell everybody what he did with his First Amendment rights. Let's go ahead and show everybody what he's been saying. And they're going, oh, not like that. You're not supposed to be reminding people what he said. Well, hey, if you're proud of this guy, then you should be proud of everything he's done, or at least proud of most of it. Instead, they're like, oh, well, just don't tell anybody. I mean, we're just saying in the abstract. Yeah, well, we're saying in the literal. The more that they try to defend this guy, the more that they have to avoid talking about him. You see, most Americans, believe it or not, didn't know or care who Charlie Kirk was. But now they're finding out. Democrats in particular, though, should be leading the charge to go ahead and tell the truth about him, but they're not. Instead, we've seen people like Bernie Sanders praising Charlie Kirk.
I want to say a few words regarding the terrible murder yesterday of Charlie Kirk, someone who I strongly disagreed with on almost every issue, but who was clearly a very smart and effective communicator and organizer, and someone unafraid to get out into the world and engage the public. My condolences go out to
Hitler. Hitler was very effective, great communicator. Hitler, legendary organizer. But you can't say that. You can't say that now. I will. But see, I've been looking at I told these people about trusting these white liberals. Malcolm told us all of them. They got niceties to say about him because they see him in themselves. And they don't feel so bad about what he was saying. Only thing he was telling whites was quit being nigger lovers and quit being communists. You know, he's saying you're the smartest, you got the greatest genes. Only thing was wrong with them is y'all just need to stop loving the niggas. Stop being communist. That's the best he come with them. Here, this guy right here. That's why I said these people like, man, the man hated you too, Jew boy. But the racist, radical, and remember the small hats they have always used those individuals, the racist bigots, to go against us. And Charlie Kirk and even Tucker Carlson already said that the small hats used the crimes of the whites to antagonize the world. And they do. And they commit a lot of crimes and dump it on the whites. Like doing slavery, we just said white people, they own blacks, and white people do. A lot of the slave owners were Jewish. A lot of the banks controlling the slaves were Jewish. A lot of the cotton places that was producing the cotton that was taken from, the cotton that came from the slaves' hard work were Jewish. But we just threw white on all of them. That's one of the crimes the poor whites not lying about, because they poor ass ain't own nobody. That's another thing. Nah, you didn't own nobody. Shut the fuck up and shut up. You've been poor peasant your whole fucking life. Your people didn't have no money. No, they didn't. They didn't own nobody. They just went along with it. To see us down was great to them.
His wife and his family.
And of course, when it comes to political cowardice, Gavin Newsom will not be outdone. That clown was saying that people should honor Charlie Kirk, honor an unapologetic racist.
See?
Here you got Gavin Newsom basically saying, in fact, not basically just coming out and saying that, well, we need to be carrying on what he did. The only thing that Charlie Kirk did was to engage in a nonstop campaign of anti-black racism full of grotesque distortions, vituperation, and outright lies. That's what this guy did. There is no way to reconcile the moral legitimacy of the black community with the cheap, vile racism that Charlie Kirk expressed every day of his life. And all you clowns out there saying, vote for the Democrats. Yeah, you see what it is that you want us to vote for. This is what you want black folks to vote for. These are the guys who are going to be standing up against fascism. They're sitting here praising the fascists. The Democrats have gone way beyond mere political cowardice. They're openly collaborating with the white right now. All of you Bernie bros and other brain dead morons who said that you backed Bernie Sanders and you had the nerve to whine at the black grassroots and say, how come you guys ain't with Bernie? Bernie Sanders, he's a solid dude. Y'all should be supporting him. Well, I'd like to know, are you going to apologize for that now? Because here we are in a situation where everybody has to go on the record with what they really believe, and Bernie Sanders is saying he stands with Charlie Kirk. Oh, he ain't standing for reparations. That's unfeasible. That's unfeasible. What he really meant was, well, that's something that my donors wouldn't like. He felt that it was unpopular. But standing with an anti-black racist like Charlie Kirk and praising him, well, that is feasible. That is acceptable. Why? Because it doesn't offend the donors, who are usually rich, white, and bigoted. Instead, it's something that offends the black grassroots, who, as far as Bernie Sanders is concerned, well, those people weren't giving me very much money to begin with. If Republicans are leading the charge to flood the zone with lies, then one has to wonder why the Democrats are doing everything they can to avoid speaking the truth. Of course, the white right's going to try to exploit this for political gain. There's been no killing that they haven't tried to politicize one way or the other for their own benefit. If they couldn't find a way to demonize a black victim of white supremacist violence, then what they would do instead is say, we just need to move on to something else. That's the reason why they moved on so easily from that Ukrainian woman who was killed, because that's what they always do. They could care less about people. All they care about is their own power. Politicization, however, is something that you can only do one subject at a time. You can't really politicize multiple things all at once. And that's the reason that all this is going on. As far as the white right's concerned, they've got to attack black people for nothing. That way, they hope that they won't wind up being punished for the actual crimes that they've committed. But it's important to understand Democrats aren't saying what they're going to be doing about any of this stuff going on. All of these proposed laws, the proposed legislation and policy changes that the Republicans are talking about, they're trying to do this under the cover of, oh, Charlie Kirk was killed, so we have to pass new laws and such. For what purpose? Well, this is going to be expanding and safeguarding First Amendment protections. And what are you going to be doing? We're going to be making it illegal for you to say anything. What we have is a federal version of the Republicans doing what they've done in other red state sewers like Florida, Louisiana, and Texas, and the Democrats not doing anything about it, not running against it. Democrats should be aggressively promising a raft of counter legislation, measures to prosecute these people and to reinforce what they call the guardrails of democracy in order to keep the GOP from pulling any more stunts like this. But then again, did they even talk about doing that down in Florida or Louisiana or Texas or anywhere else where the Republicans have been engaged in all of this legislative overreach, all of this fascism at the state level? Have you seen Democrats actually saying what they would do about that, promising to punish these attacks on democracy? Of course not. How would they do that when the Democrats themselves have been supporting a lot of that very legislation? The problem isn't that the Democrats don't know what's going on. They are excruciatingly aware of what's been happening. The problem for the Democrats that the black media has been telling you about from day one is that they've been serving the exact same masters as the white right and doing it for the exact same purposes. And now there's a group that is tired of playing the game, making real demands and standing on business, and that's who the Democrats look at and say, that's the real threat. Yes, the Republicans are becoming more belligerent, and that's good because it shows that the Democrats aren't going to do anything about it. They were never going to do anything about it. The Democrats are responding to this belligerence not with mere acquiescence, but with outright approval. Push has come to shove, and Democrats are revealing what they've always believed. This is the reason why you see the pastors, pundits, and podcasters who are taking a stand against evil, against the vile racism that Charlie Kirk embodied and promoted. But Democrat politicians are sounding just like Fox News. Now, why is that? Where's Jasmine Crockett at to go get in front of the cameras with her city girl routine? Where are the other big mouth media puppets at? You had Al Sharpton out there. Well, we need to have unity. Republicans and Democrats need to unify. They need to stand against the political violence. We need to unite to stop political violence. Well, he should have been telling that to Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk laughed and giggled and smiled when he found out that Paul Pelosi had been attacked with a claw hammer in his own home. Charlie Kirk was sitting there saying that some patriot heroes is a term the white supremacists like to use for individuals who have committed violence in the name of white supremacy. So I don't think there was any accident or coincidence that Charlie Kirk used the exact same words. Some patriot heroes needed to go and bail the guy out who attacked Paul Pelosi. Bail him out and go and, sit down and talk with him. In other words, an interview. Now, what would the response be if people said, hey, the guy who's been accused and charged with killing Charlie Kirk, somebody needs to bail him out of jail. Some patriots need to bail him out. Oh, he's not being offered bail? Well, some patriots need to get some lawyers together and they need to go to court and sue and demand that he be granted bail. After all, 4.0 GPA, he comes from a good white, clean-cut family. That being the case, you got to offer him bail. After all, this is a first offense, right? And then we need to sit down and talk to him. How would the white right respond if people acted the exact same way that Charlie Kirk did after Paul Pelosi was nearly killed in his own home? That's what the Democrats should be doing. They should be pointing out the hypocrisy, the contradictions, and the outright lies. This is their moment to get some camera time, but instead they're going, well, if we're going to get in front of the cameras, we want to say what we know the donors like, because after all, Charlie Kirk may not have been a good person, but he was good at getting money from the right people, the kind of people who the Democrats want money from. Instead, they're trying to prove how much they love the bigots and the fascists, and they're in hiding. To all you DNC shills who infest my comment section, these are the people who are going to stand for democracy. These are the people who you've been telling us are going to stand up against fascism. They won't even stand up to garden variety racists like Charlie Kirk, because their goal is to help push the needle back towards the right. The last 10 years has seen a gradual erosion of the status quo, and even a small change has huge consequences. So the donor class within the DNC and the establishment DNC leadership themselves have been pushing a nonstop war on what they call the far left fringe. And what does the far left fringe do? Are they killing people? Are they blowing things up? No. Are they storming the Capitol? No. Well, what the hell is a fringe on the left doing? They're making basic demands for meaningful policy changes. That's called democracy. And when you talk about sewers like MSNBC and CNN and the New York Times and other white media outlets on the so-called left, you would think that these liberal publications and outlets would be saying, yeah, you need to stand with those people on the left because they're the only ones standing for what's right. Instead, it's been the opposite. You've had all of these establishment white media outlets on the left saying that the Democrats need to purge all of these people on the fringe if they want to win elections. Never mind the fact that the last time that the Democrats were actually able to win an election was in 2020, when those same so-called fringe elements actually turned out to vote. See, that's what the Democrats are trying to do. They're trying to do mind bending on people. And the mind bending will take the form of just lying about their own supporters, their own voters, just lie about them and say, you people are a problem. It's all about browbeating and coercing and nagging people and trying to shame them into voting for nothing. That's what the scam is that's going on over in DNC headquarters. The Democrats made up their minds 40 years ago that they were going to throw their own base overboard. They made that decision back in the 1980s. But here they are today trying to claim that the very voters who were the only reason that they were in power in 2020, somehow they're the problem. No, that's just a lie. See, all of this going on, this is the reason why it's good that the orange man is back in the White House, because we got some political truth serum going on here. Things have come to a head. People have been talking a good game about what they're going to do and what they would do. And now that you got the forces of evil on the march, now it's time for them to show what they're going to do. And what they've shown us is they're not going to stand up. Hell, they're not even going to speak up. Instead, they're just going to back down and sit down. They're going to go hide somewhere. So they're going on the record, and what they're showing is they didn't mean a word of what they said. They just wanted to find out who was gullible and dumb enough to go along with it. Bernie Sanders has been praising Charlie Kirk. So all you Bernie fans out there, you want to know what a Bernie Sanders presidency would have looked like? This is what it would have looked like. And Gavin Newsom, he did one better. He got on all fours and was giving all kinds of oral affection to the forces of evil. Newsom saw what happened to Kamala Harris and who did it to her. So he decided, okay, I know that's not going to work. So I'm going to go ahead and drive hard to the right. He's been trying to appeal to the right-wing nuts because he already knows that he has a better chance of smooth-talking those smooth-brained inbreds into voting for him than he does fooling the left-leaning voters, particularly Black Gen Xers and millennials. He already knows that Kamala Harris's reputation followed her all over the country before she left California. She thought to herself that soon she leaves California, oh, those black voters, they're not very well informed. They don't know what's going on. All I got to do is get outside of California. Hell, they probably don't even know who I am. Turned out her reputation preceded her. We knew exactly who she was. At least Gavin Newsom's just smart enough to realize that what happened to Kamala Harris is also what's in store for him. So now he's trying to make inroads with the white right. He's letting them know, oh, all that stuff that I was saying, you guys see that I didn't follow through with it, right? I mean, you see how close and chummy that I was with people like Elon Musk and with the institutional investors like BlackRock, Blackstone, Vanguard, and others, you know, the ones who created the housing crisis. You see how close I've been with those guys. So, you know, I'm real solid about this. And by the way, I'm completely flexible with this. I mean, come on, I'll do whatever it is you want me to do just to get your vote. That's what Gavin Newsom's shown. He's a political prostitute. This man, the only principle that he actually would stand on is anything against black people. Now that he will stand on. He'll dig in his heels on that. So that's the reason why you see those in the political sphere who you would think would be telling the truth about Charlie Kirk and what all's been going on. That's the reason why they've been so quiet. And these wannabe cheerleaders for that guy, they can't tell you anything good that he actually did. Did he build a city, cure a disease, win a war? Of course not. What did Charlie Kirk do with his life other than to spout racist tropes and memes about black people? Where are his accomplishments? It's just a fact that whenever Charlie Kirk got in front of a camera or in front of a microphone, all he did was to sow disunity, rancor, and strife. That's all he did. You cannot point to any time when this guy was bringing people together. He was the avatar of racists. He was the bigot who was able to spew the cheap, vile racism that the rest of these haters wished that they could. He was their crash dummy. Well, it turns out that not enough people are fooled for the white right to be able to sit here and think they're going to get any mileage out of his corpse, which is what they're trying to do. Even some within the black clergy, an institution that's been comatose for about the last 50 years, have woken up from their slumber just long enough to go ahead and spit some facts and to tell some truth. Now, I'm not naive enough to think that this is going to be some sort of habit for them, but it says a lot when the most discredited and delegitimized sector of the black community actually wakes up for a moment and is actually able to say something real, something that's actually in line with what black people know to be the truth. And instead of these guys sitting here trying to beg for some faith-based initiative money, instead they actually decided they were going to take a moral stand, albeit one that could do without some of the baggage that they attached to it. But this is what we need to be seeing. What needs to happen is the white supremacists need to go ahead and put aside all pretense of what it is that they want. No more Mr. Nice White Supremacist. Go ahead and just show everybody exactly what it is that they've been after. And then the people can look and say, you know what? It's obvious that the Democrats are not going to do anything about it. So we're going to have to stand up and speak up for ourselves. That's what it's going to take. So please don't go kidding yourself and think that the Democrats are going to be congratulating or shaking hands with any of these black pastors. Hell, every time a black pastor speaks some truth, all it takes is some clown on Fox News to go, we don't like this. And the Democrats will be the very first ones to denounce them and say, we got to distance ourselves from Reverend so-and-so. And you know what? That's just fine with me. The righteous and the wicked are not supposed to keep company together. That's the message that these black pastors have been delivering. It's way past time that people who actually are on the side of the angels stand on the side of the angels. The operative term there being stand. Good day and be one.
Revolutionary salute to our brother Terry Ross Jr. for his donation to the war chest. Revolution is a way of life. Absolutely appreciate that love, family. Salute to you, soldier.
Mr. Kirk said for years that sometimes there in schools there has to be some live sacrifice to protect the Second Amendment.
That's right.
You got to be careful of the positions you take.
That's right.
Because they might just come back and take you. I am not applauding his death. That boy should not have died. But the Bible says, if you live by the sword, I need to share with you another preacher who has spoken nothing but the absolute truth regarding Charlie Kirk's assassination. But I also want to contextualize it that I'm getting all of these clips from MAGA, from right-wing organizations on social media who are sharing these clips as though they are an example of something wrong being said. I want you to watch the clip, listen to the clip, and we'll discuss it on the other side.
Now, I know that we all got caught up on one death, but I want to be clear that Kirk was not the only one that died last week. His black body is being killed all across the country every week. And we ain't making it a major news story. I think we need to be careful if we don't think just because white on white crime happened that it's more important than when other crimes happen as well. Okay, I'm just saying. And let's keep going. Last week in Denver was the 47th school shooting this year. And we got to be careful and we don't lose our song and get so comfortable with the hell that's raging in our streets. We still got to be conscious that there's some things happening in this world that are trying to rob us of our song. I really despise the way that Kirk was killed last week. I despise the way he was killed. Shouldn't have gone down like that. But political violence ain't nothing new to this nation. Now, let's be clear. Let's be clear. They killed our ancestors over political violence. That was political violence right there. Knees on necks, that's political violence right there. Shooting you down for having some Skittles and a drink, that's political violence right there. Let's be clear, this ain't new. This ain't new. And I want them to be just as concerned about Kirk and be just as concerned about Trayvon as they were about Kirk. And just as concerned about my brother that just got shot last night as they were about the brother that got shot a couple days ago. And while I'm on that, can I go a little farther? You and I need to be very careful. All of us need to be careful of the public positions that we take. Be very careful. Mr. Kirk said for years that sometimes there in schools, there has to be some lives sacrificed to protect the Second Amendment. I'm not making it up. Some lives have to be taken to protect the Second Amendment. Got to be careful of the positions you take, because they might just come back and take you. I am not applauding his death. That boy should not have died. His children got to be raised without a father. His wife has to deal with living without her. It should not have gone down like that. But the Bible says, if you live by the sword, be careful of your public positions, because the Bible says you will reap what you sow.
Now, folks, tell me, where is a single lie? This is Marcus D. Cosby of Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church. And I got to ask again, where is the lie? The Bible does say, if you live by the sword, you die by the sword. And you do have to be careful what you speak, especially if you're a Christian. You believe that the power of life and death is in the tongue, that you speak things into existence. And Charlie Kirk most certainly made it clear that he thought that it was a prudent, that was his exact words. Listen to him say, it is a prudent deal for there to be a sacrifice of a certain number of lives each year in order to protect the Second Amendment.
I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal.
Now, where did Dr. Cosby lie? This is a clean and pure exegesis of the text, an application to current events. And MAGA simply does not like it because they are so accustomed to hearing the false prophets of Christian nationalism coddle their white supremacy, preach nationalism, preach bigotry, use the word. They're so used to Christian nationalist pastors using the word of God in order to undergird and to support, to give a religious veneer, a theological justification for their hatred, their cruelty, and their imperialism. And so when they actually hear men and women of God speak truth to power, even when it is inconvenient, they absolutely lose their minds.
Mr. Kirk said for years that sometimes there in schools, there has to be some lives sacrificed to protect the Second Amendment. I'm not making it up. Some lives have to be taken to protect the Second Amendment. Got to be careful of the positions you take, because they might just come back and take you. I am not applauding his death. That boy should not have died. His children got to be raised without a father. His wife has to deal with living without her husband. It should not have gone down like that. But the Bible says, if you live by the sword,
we have to be careful of what we say. And yes, if you live by the principle, I'll put the scripture. Matter of fact, let me read the scriptures for you. Matthew 26:52. Then Jesus said to him, put your sword back into its place, for all who take the sword will perish by the sword.
If you
live by the sword, you die by the sword. Here's the other one, Galatians chapter 6, verse 7 and 8. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever one sows, that will he also reap. For the one who sows to his own flesh will from the flesh reap corruption, but the one who sows into the Spirit will from the Spirit reap eternal life.
Because the Bible says you will reap
what you sow. Again, this is a universal principle, folks. For every action, for everything that we do, there is a return. There is blowback, and it could be there's feedback. It could be positive feedback. It could be negative feedback, but it depends on what we are saying. It depends on what we are doing. And Charlie Kirk absolutely put those seeds into the atmosphere. He planted those seeds in the ground.
I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year, so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal.
And no matter what you believe, again, no matter whether you believe in God or whether or not I think we all believe, I believe we all can see the unifying principle. You may call it karma. We just simply call it reap what you sow. I want to say that we absolutely need to protect these pastors. I've been sharing some of them over the last few days, and I'm going to share more. But again, I want to let you know that I'm getting these clips from the right-wing social media apparatus that is MAGA. They're sharing these clips as a way of targeting these preachers to try to cancel them or to intimidate them because they don't like what these preachers are saying.
Now, you can't cancel them. There's no way to cancel a black preacher. No white person can cancel a black preacher. That's a fact. If the black community stand against them, there's nothing they can do. That's not what they're trying to do. They're putting their faces out there so one of those lone racist shooters like Dylan Roof will go in there and kill them while they're in their church. That's exactly what they're trying to do.
But the devil is a liar. No weapon formed against these men and women of God shall prosper. And they're speaking truth to power. And whether you believe in God or not, I don't know. I have such a diverse audience. You may not believe in God, and that's perfectly fine, but you can hear the truth in the scriptures that they're using. when you are willing, like Charlie Kirk, to sacrifice a certain number of lives in order to protect gun rights, it is only fitting that you become one of those sacrifices. I would never get in public and say something like that Charlie Kirk said. Out of sheer respect for the reap what you sow principle, the seed time and harvest principle, what you speak into the atmosphere principle. We're teaching our kids right now, be careful what you say. Be careful what comes out of your mouth. We begin to shape the world around us. We begin to create our reality because of what we say. And if it's in no other way, perhaps you don't believe it in the spiritual, metaphysical sense, but just simply in the way that what we say shapes what we do. And what we do shapes our reality. If you just follow that simple principle, you can sever it from any type of spirituality and see that the things that we say are the things that we convince ourselves of, and then that's how we begin to enact and behave. Now, it is only fitting that what you say comes back on you. You would call it karma. Those of you who don't believe in God, you simply would call it karma. And that's exactly what it is. It's a balancing principle in the universe. For every action, there's an equal opposite reaction. So for everything that you do and everything that you say, there is blowback. So again, shout out to all of these preachers who are speaking truth to power, no matter how much right-wing media, Breitbart News, all these social media platforms that are trying to intimidate them. I do recommend, and if any of you attend these churches, I know that they are wise, and I know that they are upping their own security, right? But we want to make sure that everyone has the mindset to protect yourselves. Even in these sanctuaries, we all remember what that devil Dylan Roof did to Mother Emanuel A. and me. And so it is not beyond white supremacy to try to harm Christians, even though they call themselves Christians. And so if you attend any of these churches, I want to suggest to you that you make sure that you stay on your toes, you keep your head on a swivel, always look around, keep your eyes open, and coordinate, speak to the leadership, speak to the security teams at these churches to ensure that you all have enhanced security. Enhance your security. What do I mean? Well, at some of these smaller churches, I went to preach at a church, and just about everybody in that church was armed. It was it was a small church, but the sound man was armed. The deacons were armed. The mother of the church was armed. The first lady was armed. There was out of about 50 people in that church, at least 9 of them were armed. And they go to the shooting range together on a regular basis. So I do recommend that these churches harden their security measures because they are being targeted on social media. And while I'm praising God for these clips, there's a big segment of American white supremacy that is looking at these clips, and they are infuriated because anytime you speak truth to power,
Next on deck with Tim Black.
We must stop calling Charlie anything other than a civil rights leader. We need to plant that stake deep. It is time that we point out that what he was doing was not politics. What he was doing was trying to stand up for people's civil rights, to show people how a civilization is not a civilization unless you can have a dialogue with people who are diametrically opposed to you, that don't believe
Tim Black's BS detector.
You see, they fumbling after the fact, trying to put together the pieces to the puzzle of this hypocrite He never said he was no civil rights leader because he mocked Dr. King and he hated civil rights and he didn't want people to have civil rights because he didn't feel like everybody deserved to be treated equal. So these people should have a shame. They should build. Glenn Beck should be ashamed of himself, but they have no shame. Plotting live on air. That's something we supposed to heard in a leaked phone call. But he live on TV. We got to say that he was a civil rights. What? Y'all hate civil rights. And I told you, it's been good. Man, that boy got killed last week. They still have never played his words. They would tell you he's a great man and he said something great. They're never going to play any of his great words because they know all his words was bigotry and hate spewed rhetoric.
Tim Black's BS detector.
Charlie Kirk is on record stating that the 1964 Civil Rights Act was a mistake.
We note in our piece that Kirk describes King as, quote, a bad guy. It's true. And Kirk's self-described very, very radical view that the country made a mistake when it passed the Civil Rights Act. Also true. As we note in the piece, Kirk has previously described Kirk as a hero and a civil rights icon. It's true. I used to be wrong. What inspired Kirk?
That's the part people not catching. He once described Dr. King as a hero and a civil rights a legend. He said, but I was wrong. No, he wasn't wrong. He was telling the truth. And then he just started to make money slandering black people, attacking Dr. King because that's where the people told him that's where the money at, boy. You go after that Dr. King. We don't give they didn't give a damn if he believed it or not. You see? This was all an act. He got killed pretending and slandering our people for no reason, scamming white people, making them think that it's really us gonna get them when it's 80% of the time they killing each other. And he was a victim. They're not gonna be able to get that statistic off their ass. He is a victim of it. He's a victim of it. And they're scrambling to try to put the pieces to the puzzle together. They can't because he's a liar. You see, he's a fraud. And they won't do this. We got to play what he said. Well, even CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, they won't play his words.
Kirk to shift his view on MLK. Why does Kirk think that MLK is a bad guy? When Kirk says that MLK says, quote, one good thing he didn't believe, what does he mean by that? Why does Kirk believe passing the Civil Rights Act was a mistake? Now, again, apparently they don't listen to the show because we do that at least once a week, right? Once a week we talk about why the Civil Rights Act was a mistake.
That's right. He said they never should have gave you civil rights.
The Civil Rights Act was a new founding where we decided to discard the U.S. Constitution and reconstitute the story, the mantra, the creed, and the vision of America. And you even see this in Republican circles as well. Well, they say, well, the Civil Rights Act corrected a lot of the errors of the Constitution. No, it didn't. The Civil Rights Act was a completely new creation. Of course, it was well-intended by some. We have acknowledged that many times.
No, it wasn't.
But the Civil Rights Act...
No, it wasn't. The Civil Rights Act was a scam by white women and rich white men who wanted to let white women make more money in society. They got more money up on the Civil Rights Act. That's a fact. Wasn't for black people, for every goddamn body. Anybody. If you're alive, if you're a body, you can get in on this. You see, it was a big time scam for our people. The small hats was right in there because they was still talking about Hitler, and they wanted civil rights. They was tired of being treated a certain way. Indians coming from overseas, they had civil rights. Give me. Arabs, give me. Africans from coming over, give me. Mexicans, give me. I got civil rights. So that's why men like him, white men like him, they start getting pissed off because everybody start getting in on scamming America. He like, oh man, we should never did no civil rights because black people really wasn't getting none. See, that's what they know. That shit, black people wasn't getting nothing no way. He know that, bro.
Act at its core was a new founding. It was the discard what happened prior. The Constitution says people have equal rights. Imagine just treating people equally. The Civil Rights Act does not treat people equally because the legal theory under the Civil Rights Act is disparate impact. And so therefore you can't arrest a bunch of criminals in DC because you might be disproportionately arresting black men, and that might be deemed as racist.
You said they never should have gave us civil rights. That they went too far giving us all those rights. That was a mistake. He said it several times in several different forums.
Do you support the Civil Rights Act?
In spirit, but not how it's written.
Why?
It's too broad and paved its way for the persecution. For example, they're using the Civil Rights Act to put men in locker rooms like Riley was in.
How? Which article?
Article 4 or 5, I think. I actually don't know specifically, but the Civil Rights Act is being used for by the trans movement right now as because they say that they are women, therefore they demand an accommodation of women's rights. Riley can riff on this. They're using the Civil Rights Act literally.
He's not lying. You see, he told the truth. It's one of the biggest scams in the history, and that was one of our gripes with our legendary leader, Dr. King. But Dr. King told y'all in the end, "Oh shit, I didn't integrate my people." The gig was up. He found out the Jews was gonna keep control, white women was gonna get in power. They wasn't getting too much of nothing. Black people wasn't getting nothing. But it was too late. They had been bamboozled. Black faces. Now when people think of civil rights, they think of black people. That's a lie. Because here you had the trans people saying they want to be in those bathrooms with those. And you don't let them in there, their civil rights being abused. You're not lying. That's disgusting. But that didn't have nothing to do with us. We didn't want that. Who gives a hell what you wanted? It was a scam to begin with.
Literally to have access into men female locker rooms.
So what would you change about the Civil Rights Act?
I wouldn't make it as broad. I would make it much more crisp and concrete, and I wouldn't have it necessarily. I would also get rid of the disparate impact component of the Civil Rights Act.
It evolved into, well, it just went too far. There's certain elements of it that just went too far.
It absolutely went too far. It's supposed to be for us, then they let everybody in on it. See, that's the gripe. The white men like, oh, damn it, everybody eating. It's just supposed to be us. See, even Trump admitted that. See, these people they had to admit. That's why the birthright censorship. Even Trump had to grit his teeth and say, that was for the descendants of slaves. That wasn't for everybody. See what I'm saying? Everything was for us. You see, after slavery, all the renegotiation was for us. Who else was there? Who the hell are we talking about except us? Everybody want to get in on our struggle, pretend like they helping us. Then they have to negotiations. That's what shit got fucked up. Then we marched with King. We didn't need none of y'all. We didn't need none of these people. Now they reaping all our goddamn benefits. But Charlie Kirk, he ain't no civil rights leader. He didn't like no goddamn civil rights. The reason they didn't like the civil rights because they knew black people was black people wasn't getting, it was for blacks. They like they said reparations, then everybody in America gets some money. White people gonna be pissed off. Like, hell no, they gotta come out of our pockets. We would have gave the black something. We don't want to give everybody something. That's what happened.
That's right. The guy who didn't get as much as an associate's degree in anything related to civil rights or laws or governance or history or black studies, or anything related to that. Just because he was Charlie Kirk, he could make that statement. And not just make that statement to his podcast. He went in front of college people, college students, and went on campuses uttering it, saying it to millions of people across, counting all the video views, all that. He said it to a lot of people. You would think the people that are supporting Charlie Kirk since his demise didn't know he said that. And now we got Glenn Beck over here saying that guy who said we shouldn't have civil rights should be considered a civil rights leader. Before we go any further, let me let you know the Tim Black Wolfpack is dedicated, committed, 10 toes down to reporting the truth, unbiased, and not working for any political party. If that sounds good to you, go to jointimblack.com, become a member of the Tim Black Wolfpack. For a very long time in America, white people,
it's not the only thing they doing trying to culture appropriate our culture and use it for themselves, like this Dr. King. If you pay attention to Charlie Kirk, widow, that devil in a blue dress, they took the play that they used the play that Emmett Till mama used to let the world see the violence when she decided to open up that casket so it would help the civil rights movement. This lady just did, cried over her husband's casket. That's the enrage, because it did enrage people when they seen what happened to Emmett Till. The old people was mad. It was hot seeing that little boy beat, swole up like that. Well, that's what they're doing. All these people do. I think they can't come up with nothing original, still off our plate. Pretend they civil rights leaders. They pretend like this lady, like she the mother of Emmett Till. She crying over the body. Oh my baby, this is disgusting.
White men, particularly, were the only people in America that actually did have civil rights. We did not have civil rights. We were considered an object, a piece of livestock. A deer doesn't have rights. Neither does a chair. And a chair doesn't own anything.
That's how the Christians treat
the chair is owned. You think Charlie didn't know that was the history of America and how America treated Black Americans? For some reason, we got a bunch of mammies and a bunch of sellouts preaching this. Now, I ain't surprised Glenn Beck's over there saying it. I'm surprised he's not crying when he does it. Glenn Beck is the cryingest white man I've ever seen. He's got a pocket full of Kleenex. And a shoulder to cry on in his suitcase. Keeps it with him at all times because all he's ever done, he's built a career off crying and groveling and throwing the word of God in people's faces like he is somebody or something. It's pathetic, man. He really is, man. I can't believe he's still around. But yeah, he says that Charlie Kirk should be considered a civil rights leader. And he's pushing for that. He's pushing for Charlie to be, considered to be revered. Not because he was elected to an office, not because he changed anything, created some legislation, founded something, built something. He was funded by Republicans, billionaires, to the tune of $90 million a year. They've been giving him money since he started, since 2012. He's been getting money from Republicans. It's very partisan what's been happening. What would we say if somebody from the Democrats was getting money from Soros for the last 20 years? For the last 10 years, 13 years, whatever. What would we say about that person? How much crucifying would the Republicans be doing of anybody taking George Soros money for the past 12 years? And then it was, I don't know, Kamala Harris or Joe Biden talking about this person should be considered a civil rights leader. The Republicans are laughing in our face, laugh in their face, laugh, laugh, laugh. But since it's Charlie Kirk, it's supposed to be overlooked.
Make no mistake, Charlie Kirk was a civil rights leader as much as Martin Luther King.
$90 million. It's not a grassroots effort. That's a political operation.
When you go to these college campuses, I love watching your TikTok, which is next level. And clearly that's expressed by my 13-year-old son.
I want to meet this guy.
Yeah, I actually...
He's coming to a Turning Point event this summer, Tampa, Florida, Student Action Summit.
Funded by big donors, not by the people. People didn't fund Turning Point. The Koch brothers did, and the Bradley Foundation did. And a lot of people that you see coming out now want some of that funding money. Yeah, it's okay. I mean, I get it. There's good people out there that they just feel bad about what they saw, and I understand that totally. But behind all of that, besides that, there's business at play. And believe me, the moment after that shot rang out, the wheels started turning in the heads of all these no-gooders, like Glenn Beck.
Do you think that there should be free school lunch for all children?
No.
Why?
Of course not. Because parents should feed their kids, not the government.
What if they can't?
Go get a job.
A child? The parents should go get the job. Yeah. This is important. I don't believe
they have jobs and they can't support their children there because the minimum wage is so low.
No, you are a temp, dude. Don't give me this stuff. First of all, this is really.
I want children to eat.
Of course I do. Show me a single child in America going hungry. Doesn't exist. Number two, we have churches, we have food shelters, we have billions, and it does not exist. We have a child obesity problem, not a child starvation problem in this country.
That's the type of guy he was. The absolute worst.
Make no mistake, Charlie Kirk was a civil rights leader as much as Martin Luther King. I'm waiting to see the first city that will make a Charlie Kirk Boulevard. Phoenix, you should be the one. There's a Martin Luther King Boulevard. There should be a Charlie Kirk Boulevard.
How can we get the most mileage out of Charlie Kirk? That's what they were thinking.
That's what they're doing right now.
And that's what this is all
doing. These people don't have no shame, bro. They don't give a shit about Charlie Kirk. They're so jealous of that young man anyway, taking all their spots. Now, Glenn Beck, shamelessly, I bet you Glenn Beck can't take a lot of technical tests and say Charlie Kirk is a civil rights leader just as much as Dr. King. That motherfucker will go and show you he lying. He know he bust out laughing. He know that, but he said it with a straight face. A straight face, Charlie Kirk and Dr. King. You put them in the same, bro. Are you kidding me? No, they not. And they're trying to push that. But guess what? White don't mean right no more. Hey, I'm white and I said so. No motherfucking more. We said hell no. We don't give a fuck what y'all say. Oh, we don't give a damn what y'all naming those streets after him. Let's fuck that street. They talking about, well, nigga, that street become a street of prostitution and dope slang. What the hell wrong with y'all? Hey, get it, man, please.
it's all about. If you fool yourself, lie to yourself about that,
man, salute, soldier.
all I can ask is don't lie to anybody else. Keep your lying thoughts to yourself.
The Tim Black.
When they talk about white supremacy, Charlie Kirk, a civil rights leader, they're going to say the rights of whites. That's not civil rights, that's white rights. You said they are fighting for the white rights of whites. So was Hitler. You see, that's they don't want to say it was a civil rights. What the fuck you talking about? That's for everybody. Charlie didn't fight for no every motherfucking body. Well, they don't have no shame in their BS.
Not all prophets stand in a pulpit. This is the case with Ta-Nehisi Coates, who just dropped a piece entitled Charlie Kirk Redeemed, A Political Class Finds Its Lost Cause on VanityFair.com. His subtitle is, By Ignoring the Rhetoric and the Actions of the Turning Point USA founder, pundits and politicians are sanitizing his legacy. I do recommend that you go over and read it. I will be reading much of the article here as we discuss it, because I really want to show you, not only, well, you don't need me to show you the brilliance of Ta-Nehisi Coates, but I kind of want to show you what this brother did in this article. What he did was to juxtapose what's being done with Charlie Kirk's, the redemption arc, the beautiful eulogies that are being written for him. In particular, he calls out Ezra Klein in the very first paragraph, and we'll get to that in a moment. But it's all captured in the title, which is an absolutely beautiful juxtaposition. The redemption of Charlie Kirk juxtaposed with the lost cause. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with the lost cause is a myth that reframes the Confederacy not as a treasonous rebellion against the United States of America in order to preserve slavery, but as this noble fight for honor and states' rights and tradition. And this is exactly what we experience today when anyone talks about the Confederacy. They say it wasn't about slavery, it was about heritage. And by erasing the explicit pro-slavery context and the words and the action, they romanticize and elevate gallant imagery of all of their heroes. This is why you have Confederate monuments all across this country. It excused the white supremacy and it laid the very groundwork for Jim Crow, as well as what we're experiencing in 2025. And Ta-Nehisi Coates goes through that exactly. And so I want to read some of this for you so that you can get an idea of what this brother really masterfully did in this article. He's saying that the same thing that was done for the Confederacy is being done for Charlie Kirk in real time. And he's writing back saying, we will not have it. Oh, Let's read just a little bit of it and then we'll discuss. Before he was killed last week, Charlie Kirk left a helpful compendium of words, ones that would greatly aid those who sought to understand his legacy and import. It is somewhat difficult to match these words with the manner in which Kirk is presently being memorialized in mainstream discourse. New York Times columnist Ezra Klein dubbed Kirk one of the era's most effective practitioners of persuasion and a man who was, quote, practicing politics in exactly the right way. California Governor Gavin Newsom hailed Kirk's passion and commitment to debate, advising to continue Kirk's work by engaging, quote, with each other across ideology through spirited discourse. Atlantic writer Sally Jenkins saluted Kirk, claiming that he, quote, argued with civility and asserting that his death was, quote, a significant loss for those who believe engagement can help bridge disagreements. The mentions of debate and engagement are references to Kirk's campus tours, during which he visited various colleges to take on whoever come may. That this aspect of Kirk's work would be so attractive to writers and politicians is understandable. There is, after all, a pervasive worry among the political class that college students, ensconced in their own bubbles, could use a bit of shock therapy from a man unconcerned with preferred pronouns, trigger warnings, and the humanity of Palestinians. But it also shows how the political class's obsession with universities blinds it to everything else, and the everything else of Kirk's politics amounted to little more than a loathing of those whose mere existence provoked his ire. This boy is preaching already. Second paragraph in, and this black man is preaching. Like I said, not every prophet stands in a pulpit, because this is exactly and precisely what's going on. Now, I don't want to read the entire article because I think that you should go over and read it, and out of respect for Ta-Nehisi's work, as well as Vanity Fair's publication, I'm not just going to, show you the whole article and read it for you, but I just have to say the precision with which this brother Coates, has eviscerated this technique that's being used by Ezra Klein and others, particularly Ezra Klein. And what they had to do is to completely erase the words and the language that was being used by Charlie Kirk and the harm that was being done to so many other people. Now, a lot of people have said exactly this, but I haven't seen anyone else compare and so precisely contrast what's being done in real time on behalf of Charlie Kirk to what was done with the Confederacy. And then when you pause and think about it, you realize that's not just what they did with Charlie Kirk and the Confederacy. This is what white supremacy does throughout the entirety of history. It always erases and sanitizes the memory of its heroes. And it also shows that there is a unification that exists, because we're not talking about conservative writers. We're talking about liberal writers. We're talking about Ezra Klein of the New York Times, who has written profusely against Donald Trump. We're talking about California Governor Gavin Newsom, who has made a spectacle of mocking Donald Trump. And here they are facilitating the same function that many people in the Union facilitated with the rehabilitation of the Confederacy through the acceptance and participation in the lost cause. Brother Coates, let me tell you something, man. You make me want to preach. Good God Almighty. Because when we pause and think about it, black people and everybody else, I know I have a very, very diverse audience. I love all of you. But when we pause and think about it, black folks, isn't this just what they do? And even worse, they invert this practice when it comes to us. When Dr. King died, did anybody he didn't need sanitization, right? But see, look at the inversion. Look at the inversion game. What do? They take someone who has done good and they invert the narrative when they are alive. And then they double down on that narrative when they die or when they are assassinated. And then that becomes the banner that they lift throughout the entirety of American history.
Let me make that plain. Just before Charlie Kirk was assassinated, he had made a personal commitment to vilifying the reputation and the legacy of Dr. King. It is a necessary function in American society to venerate, and watch this, here's the crazy part about it. We're talking about in terms of the Confederacy. And hell, it's a direct connection because consider Charlie Kirk sponsored 80 buses to January 6th. So it's not just, it's not even a loose comparison. It's almost a one-to-one comparison. You had the Confederacy against which they waged civil war. Yes, that's a big difference. But the entire purpose was to undermine democracy on behalf of an ideology that itself is not compatible with democratic order. That itself is not compatible with democracy. What's that? The slave empire of the Confederacy, not compatible with democracy. And so they attempted to overthrow democracy. What did Charlie Kirk do along with all of the rest of MAGA? They insisted on ignoring the reality of their loss in 2020. And so they all sponsored January 6th. And we get what we got on January 6th because their ideology and their belief system is incompatible with democracy. Black man, thank you for this, because this really just kind of unravels and reveals. It reveals the reality of what this nation does every single time. And it's not just conservatives. It's not just quote unquote white supremacists, but it is quote unquote white folk who ally with white supremacy. They have no problem. Let me refine my language there a little bit better, because it's really just two sides of white supremacy. It's white supremacy that tries to use democracy as its governing principle, and then it's white supremacy that doesn't give a damn about democracy. They will overthrow it any opportunity that they get. But when you see the revisionist history, the romanticization of bigotry, of treason, when you see that, you see it coming from people who swear they love the liberal democratic order. But here they are sanitizing people who tried twice in American history, during the Civil War and the Reconstruction. And now after January 6th, we have people who are just kind of coddling the same white supremacist spirit that was here in this nation. Jason Johnson from MSNBC, I remember he said it on our show way years ago. I mean, like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I was talking to that brother, and he said this started in the enshrinement in the Constitution. This division, this irreconciled division between the hope for democracy and its penchant for authoritarianism has been the poison seed of American democracy in this republic since 1776. And it's because you have a brotherhood. I don't want to call it an allyship, because they are brothers. And unless a white person explicitly rejects, do you hear me? Unless you explicitly reject the white supremacist power structure, the racial capitalist power structure in this country, you are going to find yourself like Ezra Klein, eulogizing, putting beautiful flowery words to the memory and the legacy of Charlie Kirk, but erasing the entirety of his harmful work. If you read Coates really closely, he's showing you the pattern. And here it is. I'm going to put it on your screen. It's the absolution playbook. The absolution playbook. How do they do it? Number one, they spotlight civility. They fixate on debate and engagement and the right way, not the record. So they shift the spotlight from what the person actually did and they go to their civility politics. Civility politics is like the opiate of the masses of liberalism. Oh, can't we all just get along? No, because most of white supremacy's history has been one of wanting to kill us. Number two, downgrade harms. They recast bigotry as mere views. Brother Coates said that this was open bigotry. This wasn't mere views. This wasn't just a difference of opinion. This was active, violent rhetoric that not only harmed people emotionally, but it was policies backed up by the full force of its Turning Point USA institution that had an annual budget of $140 million in order to do two things: to change an entire generation from having an inclusive mindset to being one where now college campuses are just cesspools of white supremacy. But that was just in college campuses. It went so much further. Charlie Kirk was a political operative that was able to get policies passed all around the country. And so by downgrading the harms, they were able to recast this bigotry that was active and a force in American political structures into just mere disagreement on the views. Number 3, rebrand coercion, right? And what does this mean? That means that they would wrap calls. This is what Ezra Klein and everyone who's sanitizing Charlie Kirk's memory, what they did was they would wrap calls for force in concepts of the Second Amendment right. What do we mean specifically by that? That means if you take someone who has an active verbalized threat against you, and so long as they do it under the guise of the Second Amendment, then it's no longer portrayed publicly as a threat. It's captured and it is represented as being nothing more than Second Amendment rights. And who does that leave vulnerable? The very people who were targeted by Charlie Kirk and the rest of his get-along gang. Number 4, Coates is teaching us that how they absolve these figures, not only the Confederacy, but they also absolve Charlie Kirk in real time, is they make the blame ambient, right? He says that they treat political violence as a virus so that authorship blurs. What does this mean? This means that it decontextualizes the political violence that happens every single day in this country and has happened consistently across the centuries, and it severs it from its root and says that it's all so bad. It's all it's a virus. Okay, that's cute, but you know what it also is? A direct extension of white supremacy and racial capitalism. And we can identify the purveyors of that violence as evidenced by the very study that the United States just erased from its database that demonstrated that white supremacist and conservative ideologies were the leading purveyors of violence in this country. So has it always been across this globe. The greatest violence, political violence that has ever been experienced on this planet has come from white supremacist, conservative, right-wing ideologies that is insistent on preserving their political and economic hegemony and control over the entirety of the human race. And Ezra Klein knows that. He's smart enough to know that, but he has to write so beautifully and flowery and to give a flattering eulogy to Charlie Kirk so that he can get a pat. Ezra Klein can get a pat on the back from all of the liberal elites that think that, oh, we can all just get along and, oh, this is just a mere difference of opinion. The irony of this is, if you think about the fall of the Weimar Republic and the rise of Nazism in Germany, you would realize that it is the Ezra Kleins and the Gavin Newsoms and the rest of the liberal elite types that ultimately got just as much as everybody else. While they are coddling the fascism of MAGA in this particular moment by sanitizing the memory of Charlie Kirk, what are they doing? They are honestly creating and paving the pathway for the exact type of violence to be used against them from MAGA, because MAGA's not making a distinction between Ezra Klein and Gavin Newsom just because they are saying, oh, he was a good guy and this was a bad thing that happened to him because all he had was a difference of opinion. You think MAGA cares? It reminds me of Cenk Uygur of TYT when he put out the video last week and he was like, oh, this is so horrible. Oh, this is so horrible. Why would you do this? Why now? He was a good guy, and it was just a difference of opinion. And he put out this real impassioned plea. And you know what MAGA said to him? You're just trying to save your own ass, Jank. That's what they said in the replies. They said, we're not trying to hear you, Jank, Uger. We're not trying to hear what you have to say. We're coming for you too. When you try to coddle white supremacy, it comes to get you. Even if it comes to get you last, it still comes to get you. And so number 4, making the blame ambient, that's a dumb move. If you don't make the blame of the truth, if you don't root the blame of violence in the truth, which is what? That it stems from the desire and the obsession with maintaining power at all costs by a small group of people who have demonstrated the capacity to be the most violent creatures in the history of the planet. If you don't expose that root, it simply comes to get you last. Ezra Klein and Gavin Newsom and Cenk Uygur, even though they probably come get Cenk before they come and get Gavin Newsom for reasons of obvious reasons. I digress. And number 5, omit the text. This is what my brother Coates, this is what he outlined. He said, I need you to see this pattern. I need you to see this pattern. Even anytime they try to absolve someone of the evil that they did when they were living. Number 1, they spotlight civility. Number 2, they downgrade the harms. Number 3, they rebrand coercion. Number 4, they make blame ambient. And number 5, they omit the text. And this is what he directly said Ezra Klein did. When you go read this article, you're going to notice that he says this about Ezra Klein. Ezra Klein said all of these flowery words about Charlie Kirk. But you know what Ezra Klein couldn't do? Quote Charlie Kirk not a single time. Why? Because the fact,
none of them are.
The truth is in every word that this man said and everything that he stood for. I'm not going to go down the list. Everybody is going down the list of all the things that Charlie Kirk said that were evil. Good. Keep doing it. But Ezra Klein having to decontextualize the truth of what this man said in his eulogy that he wrote in the New York Times really reveals the fact that he is performing the same service of absolution for Charlie Kirk that the United States allowed to take place in the absolution of the Confederacy and the romanticization of the lost cause. Number 5, omit the text. You build the legend without quoting Kirk. Persona replaces the record. Folks, like I said, not all prophets, not all preachers stand in the pulpit. But this good brother, Ta-Nehisi Coates, he has really nailed. I mean, when has this brother not nailed it? I think I might see a writing from this brother once a year, once every 2 years sometimes. And every time he steps out from behind the silence of his absence, he nails it. Charlie Kirk redeemed. A political class finds its lost cause. By ignoring the rhetoric and actions of the Turning Point USA founder, pundits and politicians are sanitizing his legacy. Be sure to share, like, and subscribe to this channel as we continue to do our part in the fight against this scourge that has besieged this planet. Let me give you one more thing. It has besieged this.
See, I had to bring y'all this on the brother Ta-Nehisi Coates because that's what I want to see out our intellectuals. Go chase them where they're at. This man went chase them down and dropped him a news piece, and that's shaking up the political arena. He's challenging them on the facts. He's putting his life on the line. This is a brave man. This is what you do. He's challenging them. You accidentally can get killed. A black man speaking up right now against Charlie Kirk and speaking out. And he crushed them. He see they intellectuals, they want to come forward. I dare them to debate this brother on this Charlie Kirk issue. They're not. They're going to avoid this brother right here because he done already fired the first warning shot for them the liberals writing a cushy piece on Charlie. He just destroyed them.
This planet since before Jesus was born. I need you to really think about that. The Roman Empire, and before them, the Greeks. This European economic extraction exploit of colonization We have been dealing with this scourge since before Jesus was born, and we've got to do something about it.
White man, fight back! White man, fight back! White man, fight back! White man, fight back! White man, fight back!
White men actually think they losing the country. To who? White men trying to overthrow the government that they run.
So as we all know by now, Charlie Kirk got put on a shirt. He up out of here. And in response to that, there has been a lot of protests going around America. Young white men are tired and they're fighting back. They are done being oppressed. Who's oppressing y'all? Now, maybe, just maybe, I could understand these protests if the shooter of Charlie Kirk was an immigrant, a black person, you know, somebody that's not white. But the person that took him out was a far-right white young man, bro. I'm talking about the exact thing that Charlie Kirk stood for. Now, there has been a lot of debate surrounding if he was a Republican or he was a Democrat, but none of that matters. He was a young white man. White people in America get so much grace because they're never a monolith. If somebody does something bad, they're so quick to put them in subgroups, but reverse it and say a black person does something. Oh, black fatigue. Oh, this and that. No one puts into question if he was a Democrat, if he was a Republican, if he was trans, if he was gay, none of that. They're just black, bro. So why do we have to do that for white people, huh? Now, my first talking point today about young white men in this generation, I'm going to talk about how they are extremely lonely and have this weird infatuation with saving the white race.
Race mixing was illegal up until 2002. You're going to give up 50,000 years of evolution if you mix up with this dude. No, you realize that race mix, it's going to give up 50,000 years of your evolution, right? Literally, you're just throwing down your genetic line. Pretty much, you're just LARPing. You're LARPing as a European in America.
I think having a black son would still totally be normal.
But let's say you were the last person who could have children in your bloodline. You would throw away 10,000 years of like pure blood for that?
Yeah, I think all blood is pure. You're being weird.
I just think about how miserable and weird you got to be to go up to a random person on the street and say, hey, race mixing is bad. Now, I'm gonna keep it 100 with y'all. Me personally, I love black women. My soon-to-be wife is a black woman. Now, on the other hand, if you decide to dibble and dabble in other races, that's you. My only problem is that you do not have to down the other race to bring up another one. In today's day and age, black men get with white women and start bashing black women, and also black women get with white men and start bashing black men. That's a no-no. Now, what seems to anger them the most is seeing a black woman with a white man. So we're on Twitter right now, and it says, I'm beyond excited to be a mom. This picture is very self-explanatory. They're an interracial couple and they're expecting a baby. But like I stated, white men hate to see this coming. First comment, someone said, never bet on black. It's a photo of a white woman with a bruised eye and a black baby sitting on her lap. This ended up getting 15,000 likes. Like, bro, what the Here goes another meme they dropped in the comments, basically insinuating that she's going to be a single mom because she, you know, chose a black man. 14,000 likes. Imagine carrying a fetus for 9 months just to end up seeing one of these creatures and then realize that you have to live with this thing for the next 18 plus years. Nightmare. And it's a photo of mixed babies. Like, the crazy thing about this, y'all, is that nobody's forcing these white women to talk to non-white men. And just to use black men as a reference, we make up only 6% of the US population. White women, on the other hand, make up 30%. So if these women are willingly choosing to date the minority, something is wrong with y'all.
Breaking tonight, a North Carolina man who allegedly vowed to shoot up black preschoolers has been caught by the FBI.
The suspect is 25-year-old Zachary Newell. Allegedly said he wanted to injure 20 black children, among other violent and racist threats, in a comment on YouTube.
Now learned the man who police say shot and 3 people in Mount Washington this past weekend has also now died. So 2 of the victims were sisters.
A man sits in jail accused of strangling a woman and slashing her throat. 42-year-old Joshua Anzalone is charged with attempted second-degree murder.
Investigators say he attacked the woman yesterday around 4:30 p.m. at the Royal Inn on North Market Street. She was rushed to the hospital where she remains in critical condition.
Investigators say 16-year-old Desmond Hawley, who was a student at Evergreen High School, was radicalized through an extreme network, but they wouldn't go into detail. Hawley died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound after he allegedly shot and wounded two of his classmates. At last check, they are still in the hospital. Their names, though, have not been released.
All of those news stories took place in August of 2025. And I could find countless more, bro. You see, in America, they love to demonize black people. We're violent, we're angry, we're this, we're that. But white people do the exact same thing on much higher rates. But I say this all the time. If you control the media, you control the narrative. The crazy thing about it, y'all, is that you'll never see these big conservative YouTube pages do videos on these stories. They think that putting down black people will make them closer to white men, when in actuality, white men will never see you as equal. Now, this man right here is George Lincoln Rockwell, the founder of the American Nazi Party. Now, this man despised anything that wasn't a white Christian man. But guess what? Take a look at this photo of him sitting at a Malcolm X speech. So Malcolm X's mentor was Elijah Muhammad. So Elijah Muhammad and George Rockwell actually came on agreements to things. They both believed that blacks and whites cannot live together. And guess what? George actually donated to Elijah Muhammad and his foundation. Now, me bringing this up is just to simply show you that a racist will respect you more if you can stand on your principles. If you're not white, why kiss up to them? Yeah, you can talk down. It's not going to do anything. You're still not white. You get what I'm saying? Nobody likes a bootlicker.
Bro, like we were talking about earlier, the projecting. White people didn't even consider us human, 3/5 human. That was never our problem. Our main problem is why we considered them human in the first place. If anybody 3/5, look at that behavior. Who eat people? Who would feed a baby to an alligator? Who would do that? Who would exterminate buffaloes just so people wouldn't have nothing to eat, wouldn't have a source of food, just to punish people? Who would give people disease-ridden blankets? Who would do this? Who would create black codes? If you walking along the train line, you going to prison. Vagrancy laws. Same thing they doing now. Our issue isn't our humanity. Our issue is trying to prove our humanity to people who don't behave in a humane way.
First and foremost, big shout out to Deontay Cal. Make sure y'all check out his YouTube channel, man, the Grits and Egg podcast. He be dropping a lot of gems. But this brother summed it up perfectly. Like I always state, everyone, especially Americans, love to demonize black people. And they love to bring up things such as pattern recognition and usual suspect, as if white people, white men specifically, have a heinous track record. And I just want to bring up the hypocrisy of this whole Charlie Kirk situation. People are actually losing their jobs because they're speaking out or making jokes about his death. But where was this outrage when it was for Trayvon Martin? Yeah, you remember the Trayvon challenge where you had white men, white teenagers specifically, putting on a hoodie, getting an iced tea and some Skittles and playing dead on the ground. Like, what type of demonic? How is this funny? This shit is demonic as and I don't care. It's not the same. Charlie Kirk went around degrading black people, immigrants, gays, transgenders. He spread hate. So obviously those people are not going to like him. And let's even go a couple years ago. George Floyd. I know y'all love to say, oh, George Floyd, he was a criminal. He was this and that. What y'all say? Nobody deserves to die, right? Yeah. Tell me why you got grown ass white men doing the George Floyd challenge, putting in like this stuff is sickening, bro. It's extremely sickening and it's so hypocritical. It's always dark humor until it's a white person. Now, I will say this, bro. I miss that just chill, hardcore era of white dudes. Tony Hawk, Jeff Hardy, Rob Dyrdek. Like, what happened to those type of white dudes? I watch a lot of TV with art people. I play video games starring white people. And it's like now in the back of my mind, I'm like, damn, bro. Do dude even rock with me? Do you have a secret agenda against my kind? I can't even, I can't look at it the same. It's so draining and tiring to have that perspective towards everything. But as a black person, we got to do that to be safe. And it's like when I'm out in public, bro, I have great interactions with white people. Like and I ain't gonna lie, I be speaking first. I be like, hey, you know what I'm saying? I'll be like, what's good? You know what I'm saying? Like if I see an old lady, no matter white or black, I'm gonna hold the door for her. Old white man, old black man, I'm gonna hold the door for them, bro. That's just a person that I am. And that's why I just keep talking about this generation, because it seems like we're going a step back. Like the generation before them, like, I don't know. I don't think they was as racist as they are now, bro. And that's crazy to say. But I'm going to just end this video before I go off on a whole tangent. I want to say I appreciate all of the support. We are at 50,000 subscribers. Y'all understand how fast we're growing?
But they do say some things. For example, in the USA, like a black person they have an 88% chance of being, killed by another black person. So, for example, like criticizing their own community, trying to help black people and change the culture so that they're not, hurting each other, killing each other, and actually trying to be better. These are things that, people like Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens do say.
Wait, do you really think Charlie Kirk cares about black people killing black people? You believe that?
I mean, if he's pointing out statistics that are true, that, certain percentage of the population, but committing a large portion of the crimes, and fundamentally.
Let me ask you a question. And really, they got to improve the educational system over there. And this is precisely why I started off. I said that education is hugely important for solving the Charlie Kirk situation. Let me destroy that statistic real quick. Number one, it's goofy for a number of reasons. You don't even need facts. You can just use logic. Let's use a bit of logic. Take a wild guess. Do blacks live mostly around Asians, Arabs, whites, or blacks? A, B, C, or D? What do you think?
Other blacks.
Oh, they live around other blacks, but that wouldn't be unique, because do you think that maybe whites live mostly among whites? Would you say that? Would you think that maybe Indians live mostly around Indians? Would you think that?
That's true.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, great. So if you see crime happening, it would mostly be blacks doing it to blacks merely because they live among one another, right?
Yeah, that's true. But
okay, great. So that's destroyed. That's idiocy. Now let me show you how biased you are.
Amount of crime that
1 second, young man. Let me show you how biased you are. Now, you said 80% of crimes.
88% of black people are murdered by other black people.
88% of black people. It looks like you're reading right now.
No, I'm on another screen. I can see right now. Like that's just I've researched. I've looked at it before. And
okay, it's just that I could see like you usually have two different focus points, and you were
using. I was
just
looking at the chat because it's on the side.
Oh, you're looking at the chat. Okay, fantastic. Stay here. Stay focused. You're gonna need your focus here. I promise you. So, what percentage? Now hit me with that percentage one more time, just real quick.
88%.
88% what?
Of black people are killed by other black people.
Okay, 88% of black people are killed by other black people. Very good. Now, without looking at your screen or looking at the chat or researching, what percentage of white people are killed by other white people?
I believe it's around. I think it's around a similar percentage. I don't know exactly, but
why is it? No, real quick. Why is it you seem to be able to marshal the statistics of the bad things the blacks do? And I just said simply, let's look at the analog. What percentage of whites are killed by whites? And then all of a sudden you're like, that doesn't strike you as like, well, geez, I can't be a rational person. Like the most basic assumption would be to check the analog, right? To check the counter. It'd be the most basic thing. Why didn't you do that?
But my point was they're coming in.
No, I didn't ask you what your point is. I asked you, why did you not do the basic thing of checking the other side?
Because looking at black people, I'm only focused on them. I'm not focusing on.
You're only focused on black people. Why are you only focused on black people?
I mean, as a black person, I think it's.
Let me help you out. You're not a black person, Toby. Number one, you're looking at crime data, supposedly, from the United States of America. Those are foundational black Americans. That's a different ethnic group. You're a Nigerian young man. So that is comparable to someone being Chinese and saying, well, you're not a foundational black American. You're Chinese. You're from a totally different place. So why are you so concerned with what's going on with the foundational black American? Are you a foundational black American?
I mean, not by the definition. No, I'm in the UK.
No, there's not. What do you mean by definition? You're not in any way. You have no connection to the foundational black American. That's like saying an Italian and a German are the same because they're both white. They're not the same. Would you agree?
No, the same.
Yeah, no, they're not the same. One's Italian, one's German. They're different ethnic groups. Categorically, yes, they're both white, but they're unrelated. And in fact, when you take the British, since you're in UK, the British and the Germans, they're both white, correct?
Yeah.
But they're not the same, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. So you're a Nigerian. I'm a foundational black American. We're not the same. So why the hell are you so concerned about what we're doing?
I was just bringing up the point in that.
I'm asking you, why are you so concerned with what we're doing? Because you're not us.
there's definitely some analogs and some, comparisons between.
There are no analogs because you're totally a different culture. You're Nigerian. I'm foundational Black American. Someone's German, someone's British. Those are different cultures. We're not the same. So you have no reason to be concerned with what we're doing. That's number one. The reason you pick that up is because we're both Black and you hate your Blackness. And you can express that through Charlie Kirk. And that's been implanted in you and you know not. Now, understand this. Here's the other point, because Charlie Kirk has more of a reason to talk about it than you. He's at least an American. He's at least in the same damn country, and he can pretend that our affairs affect him, which they don't, because you yourself said 80% of Black people are murdered by Black people, which means that Black on Black crime is the issue, not Black on white crime. So white people probably don't have a big issue because they live among themselves. Now, that was obliterated, and also I exposed you for being an unreasonable racist, which is to say, if you were a reasonable person, you probably would have at the basics said, well, white people commit white on white crimes at this rate, which is different than the Blacks, but you didn't even do the basic research on that. Number one. Then if you were really smart, like I told you in our last session to be more prepared, you would have showed up and said, oh, in addition to that, I also can tell you that the ethnic Chinese, they commit Chinese on Chinese violence at just 17%, which lets you know that there is a problem within said community because there's a huge disparity. But you didn't do your research because you didn't want to do the research. Why didn't you want to do the research? Because you need that narrative of Black people being impulse uncontrolled animals. That's why you didn't do the research, young man, because you're in an era where it's easier than ever to do research. Now, let me finish breaking you down like Legos. Dig this. In addition, you want to talk all of this stuff about, violence, the Blacks are violence. This is your Charlie Kirk talking point, young man. How many people have whites murdered?
In all of history?
However you want to take it. All of history, since America started, last week, let's rewind a little bit. I'm gonna make it easier. These are setups. I've already thought 10 moves ahead. I'm just setting you up real quick. So walk with me, young man. What's the definition of murder?
Unjustified killing of another human being.
Unjustified. Who decides if it's justified?
It depends on the person. I mean, you can look at it from a legal standpoint or more, it depends, but.
Okay, so let's take a legal standpoint. Legal, meaning laws. Laws come from what? Governments, correct?
Yep, correct.
Great. Now, if you were under the government, which was in fact a government, would you agree?
Yes.
Then the of all of the people who will remain nameless, the small hats, murdered 6 million of them. That was according to the law, which was justified by the government, meaning it was okay. So it wasn't then by your definition. Do you realize that? Do you realize just by your definition, meaning unjustified according to the law, if the Nazis are the government and they say that it's okay to kill these people, then it's justified. And this is not new in European history, right? Colonialism is that's all of colonialism, which means that your crime statistics never account for the murder of the ruling class. It's not when they do it. It's when you do it, Toby. But when they do it, it's justified, just like you said. You're a good lapdog for them. Do you understand the logic that I just broke down for you, or is it confusing? I can run it back if you need me to.
I mean, I understand, but you didn't let me say my main point.
No. I'm just saying, so you do understand. You understand how the crime statistics get cooked. For example, Donald Trump murdered some people on a boat recently, right? Supposedly coming out of Venezuela, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Was that murder or was that justified?
Legally, it would be justified considering it was a government.
I'm asking you, was it justified or was it murder?
I mean, personally, I would say it was. I wouldn't say that's justifiable to do that to people, but from his standpoint, that would have been.
Yeah, it's really tough, you see, because the ruling class, your white supremacists, when they do it, it is justified. And when they do it, it's not accounted in the crime statistics because they decide who the criminal is. And it's you, it's not them. You see, I bet you there's no crime statistics on with regards to the Native Americans. We don't know how many they killed. Kind of hard to count, probably. How many Africans did they kill? Just transporting Africans to the New World. We don't know, but even if we did know, it's not considered murder because you guys are not humans. You're not your property, your chattel. How many people were killed once blacks were recognized as humans? Do we have the data on it? Interesting. So what I'm pointing out to you, young man, is that you would follow Charlie Kirk, who's trying to suggest that there's something wicked in the black DNA that makes them so violent. And that's why they have these terrible, unfavorable statistics that show that they're killers. Yet you would observe whites like Ukrainians. Would you say Ukrainians are white? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Would you say that Russians are white? Yes or no?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay, great. Thanks for using reality. I appreciate it. Now, they're killing each other, right? They're calling it war. But one of those sides is not justified. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Okay, so one of those sides is committing murder, right?
Yeah, according to my
great. Now, do you think that they're counting that as murder and crime statistics anywhere on earth?
It depends. I mean, Russia.
No, dummy. They're not counting it as. I can't even ask you guys questions when you people come on here. Of course, they're not counting it as murder. They're calling it war.
Revolutionary salute to with that 7 and say for the donation to the war chest. Revolutionary Real Life. Absolutely appreciate the love, family. Say, tell him you're not even a ninja. You're African. Revolution is a real life. He's looking like he's mad. He's even got on that stream. Appreciate the donation to the war chest, family. Salute, because he wasn't nothing but a punching bag this whole time. I would have been turned off.
And they're calling it justified, just like the Europeans who call themselves Israelis are killing the kids in Gaza. Are they calling that murder? No, they're calling it war. That's what they do. They lie. Their chief tool is deception. And in their lies, you can never account for what they're actually doing. And that's how Charlie Kirk fools people like you. The American government goes into, which is to say white supremacists, goes into Iraq, mass murder. They go into Afghanistan, mass murder. They go into Syria, mass murder. They go into Libya, mass murder. They caused the Ukraine-Russia war, mass murder. They support what's going on in Palestine, mass murder. Now, point is, none of it do they count in crime statistics as murder. None of it. But they have a bloodthirst, these people. There's something in their DNA that causes them to kill because they've never stopped killing, my dear boy. They've been on a killing spree. My whole life, your whole life, your grandmother's whole life. But that's not in the crime statistics. So you Charlie Kirk acolyte, so you tell me, what are the crime statistics on those wars that I put out? Like white people killing people in an organized, efficient fashion. It's not in the crime statistics. Do you understand my point?
Yeah. I think that's
do you because you use the term justified, do you recall that most of the countries on earth said that the invasion of Iraq was unjustified? So by your definition, everyone who died in Iraq as a result of the American presence would have been murdered, which would make it a crime, an international crime, in fact, a crime against humanity, in my opinion. That being the case, is that going to show up in crime statistics that Charlie Kirk uses?
Most likely not.
Of course not, because they redefine things. They redefine things to change the game, to move the goalposts, to lie. And they've been doing that forever. That's why you believe they're superior, because they lied to you. That's why you believe you are inferior, Toby, because they lied to you and you believe the lie. You carry their book every Sunday and you think you're a Christian. That's the same religion that enslaved millions of black people throughout the world. Do you know that?
Yeah, but Christianity.
Yeah. You ever read Ephesians?
Pardon?
You ever read Ephesians in the good book?
I read verses in Ephesians, but
you ever read the verse in Ephesians that says, follow your earthly masters?
But you're kind of isolating it to the transatlantic slave trade when, you know, Christianity existed long before that.
I'm just asking you a question about Christianity, and you're kind of running from it because it seems though you're trying to protect your white religion that justifies enslavement.
Just because they used it in a bad
way. Your people.
But that would mean they used it in a bad way. They used Christianity in a bad way. It doesn't make Christianity itself.
Oh, you're okay. So Christianity is not bad. It just justifies slavery explicitly. And it was used directly in the institution of slavery, including slave ships named Jesus. Did you know that? There were slave ships named Jesus. Did you know that?
I didn't know that. No.
Now you know, little buddy. Use Google every now and then. Because I promise you, the white supremacists will not teach you your history in their schools. They won't do that to you.
According to 404 Media, which is an independent news organization, they found out that the Department of Justice deleted this study, which was conducted recently, and is currently reviewing materials about this study and other similar studies on its website. But the study essentially said that right-wing violence is outpacing all other types of violence. White supremacy violence is outpacing all other types of violence. And it was a pretty important study to show that domestic terrorism and homegrown terrorism really is contributing to a lot of the violence in the United States of America. And now this Department of Justice, unsurprisingly, is actually trying to whitewash these studies from the public's purview. As always, spread the word. I'll do a full breakdown of this and more on my Substack, linked in bio, so subscribe for free and follow along, stay up to date on all the news you need to know about. I will have much more to come soon. According to 404 Media, which is an independent news organization, they found out that the Department of Justice deleted this study, which was conducted recently.
Now look, guys, now people, well, check this out. First of all, I agree with this. I agree with this assessment. I haven't looked at the study. I will look at the study, but I already agree with it because that's not new. Like, we already knew that these right-wing extremist type organizations were the primary threat. Like, the DOJ reported this like a couple years ago. But this is a new study to show there's still a threat. With all this talk about the loony left and Antifa and all this other stuff they want us to focus on, that's just flash in the pan stuff. I mean, the real all-stars, the pro bowlers, are the right-wing extremists. Okay? The nationalists, social nationalists. That's it. So here's the thing. When people say Tim Black, or when people make comments about Trump's administration, I say, see, that's why Trump has these certain people. He didn't hire for brain processing power. Yeah, two could play that game. Trump did not hire his administration based on brain processing power. He hired them based on if they're going to go along with him, if he can count on them to do what he wants them to do to get his agendas accomplished. That's what he's about. He don't want anybody that's going to buck him, push back, divert, sabotage, play the other side, run interference, leak information, any of that shit. That's what Trump is on. He learned from his first term. Yeah, his first term taught him well. He's like, the most important thing, I don't care who I put in there. He'll put in a wax doll. He will. He'll put in a wax doll. He'll put in a mute, someone who cannot talk first. He'll put in someone in a vegetative state in a position. As his FBI director, as his Homeland Security, whatever, any position. As long as they shut up and do what he say do, that's it. He don't want problems. Because last time he put people in a position and they did the in around. They worked around him. They thwarted him. They leaked. They did all these things. So that's really what Trump is doing. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just telling you. That's the criteria in which he picked these people because, yeah, Trump has his own way of doing his MAGA politics, right? But you got to understand, the Democratic Party, they don't have these problems. What leaks, what backdoors did Biden have? Biden was basically incompetent. He was already on a downswing before he even took office. We were talking about the cognitive decline of Joe Biden back in 2016 on this channel. And I didn't have a crack team of investigators. If you followed him enough, you know the Joe Biden of 2008 was after Joe Biden of 2016. Okay? You knew it was a big difference. Those 8 years, massive in the degradation of his abilities, right? Okay. But under his presidency, how much leaking was there? Basically none. The vice president fell in line, all the cabinet fell in line, everybody was hush, hush. The only time anything came out is when it had to be dealing with Republicans. Like that William Hur guy, right? Who did that report when they got Biden in there and did the investigation about the documents. And he said, Biden, I would say we should charge him, but he's an old man who don't know where he is. He don't even know what his Son got sick. He don't even know where he was. He don't know what day it is. Half the time I'm talking to him. I can't make this guy be like he meant to do what he did when he doesn't know where he is. The point of that is Donald Trump didn't have that power over his administration the first time. There were people leaking stuff, throwing stuff out, people working with the Democrats, people setting them up, people doing all types of shit. And what I'm saying is the Democrats have a closed system. You step out of line, your career's over. You don't follow the script, you gone. You are blacklisted, done for. Republicans didn't have that in place. Trump definitely didn't have that in place. So that's how Trump operates. And as it relates to what we're talking about right now, what's going on with the Chash Patel and all these other officials and what's happening with the reports, yeah. They are now Department of Justice, Pam Bondi, these people, they're not going to put out anything. They're not going to put out anything that's going to make the Trump administration look bad at all. Count on it. No, that's what's going to happen. And as bad as that is, I'm positive because black people caught hell. Those 8 years under Obama were hell for black Americans. All the greatest hits of all the black people were done under Obama's reign. The Alton Sterlings, the Laquan McDonalds, all that shit happened under Obama. Yeah. What I'm saying is there was a lot. The Michael Browns, all that happened under Obama. What I'm saying is there was a lot that could have been said about what was happening to black people at that time, but they didn't want that conversation to be public. That was not a public conversation, and there was not a lot of people doing the in around on the Obama administration because they were loyal to the Democratic Party. They didn't want to step out of line. And those same people worked for Biden, and they didn't want to step out of line. Trump did not have the luxury of that type of silence and that type of commitment to shutting the hell up. He did not have a closed circuit, right? So that's what he's got now. He's got that in place. So people that are saying this is appalling, it's disgusting. I agree, it is disgusting. It is appalling. But I want you to know it existed under Biden. You just didn't know about it because no one was talking about it. It existed under Obama. Anything you see Trump do, no, he's trying to break some modes now. He is trying to go into uncharted territory now. But I'm going to stick to it because when you look at COVID, they're treating Charlie Kirk like COVID. There you go. Class dismissed. So I stick by my claim. Anything you see Trump doing and Democrats are complaining about it, know this. The Democrats have done the same thing at a different time. You may not have known about it. So before you start getting critical of the Trump administration or why you're being critical, recognize, look for the Democrats. Because if you compare the people that are losing their jobs talking about Charlie Kirk to the people that lost their jobs who talked about COVID, there is no comparison. There is no comparison. Far more people lost their jobs, access to this, access to that, for talking about the COVID, the jab, than anything else. There it is. And they even went out to independent media. I got a strike just for even reporting on something that was already being reported about COVID. And I got a strike. And all I did was I did a story off a story. They didn't give a damn, Johnson, because that's how afraid they were of the Democrat administration and how they were cranking down. It wasn't for YouTube. YouTube, they be making them go up on the hill and sit through those long-ass meetings on them hard-ass chairs. No corporation wants to deal with it. None of them want the problem. Facebook, YouTube, none of them. We good? Get where I'm coming from? So don't trip. It's not good. I don't appreciate it. I do not support this overreach. I do not support the suppressing of reports coming out of the Department of Justice that show that the right-wing extremists are dangerous. Woo-wee! We knew that shit. But just know they're suppressing that. It's been a lot of other suppression. They could have done that report 4 years ago. It would have been the same report. They did do it probably. I remember Biden running on that.
As I said in my address to the joint session of Congress, according to the intelligence community, terrorism from white supremacy is the most lethal threat to the homeland today. Not ISIS, not Al-Qaeda, white supremacists.
The top domestic violent extremist threat comes from racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists, specifically those who advocated for the superiority of the white race.
He tried to tie it to Trump, though we all know white supremacy, white nationalism, all this stuff been existing in America ever since black people got free. Yeah, that's what happened. When black people got their freedom papers, that's when the white nationalists appeared. Because free black people have always been a threat to racists.
The Tim Black Show streams Sundays, Mondays.
My bad. I accidentally dropped up this one. Put this up for y'all.
Charlie Kirk, who got shot in Utah. Him getting shot in Utah makes him, I believe, American number 18,533 who got shot in the U.S. this year, shot and killed. And I think that there were 3 more people who were killed, shot and killed in Colorado, just over the mountains, within hours of his shooting. And all the flags in America are going to fly half-mast, not for those 18,335 other victims, but they're going to fly half-mast for Charlie Kirk. That's just an observation. You can do with it what you will. I'll be honest, when I first heard that he had been shot, I made a joke about it on X. Because frankly, I'm just as used to theatrics coming out of America as I am used to gun violence coming out of America. And I thought that theatrics seemed more likely in this case. But when I did learn that he died, I deleted my post. I deleted it out of respect, not for him, but for the severity and for the solemnity of the judgment that he has now proceeded to. Because everything that he ever said and everything that he ever did that harmed anyone, well, he's going to answer for that. He's going to answer for that right now in his meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the heaviness of that meeting is disturbing to any of us who believe in it. But we'll talk about it. Let's start with the obvious, okay? First, I'm not going to feign grief or feign mourning for this person. I know that's a hypocrisy that social etiquette demands at a moment like this. But we all know that he would certainly not grieve for us. He certainly would not mourn for us, just as he never grieved and he never mourned for the wanton slaughter of the Palestinians in Gaza. He never grieved for that. And for myself personally, as a Muslim and as a critic of Western so-called civilization, I know that Charlie Kirk himself would most likely have officially anyway considered me to be his enemy. And as far as I'm concerned, any man whose enemy mourns him when he dies, well, he wasn't doing his job. And I don't think it can be said about Charlie Kirk that he didn't do his job, which is to say that he never did anything and he never said anything in his public life that would make me mourn his passing, just as I hope that I will never say or do anything in my public life that would make my enemies grieve for my passing. They should be happy when I die. Enemies are disturbed by each other's presence, not by each other's absence. But let me also be crystal clear about this. It doesn't make me happy either. I neither mourn nor celebrate. Neither of those reactions is appropriate, in my opinion. Whoever pulled that trigger didn't do it for me and they didn't do it for you. I don't even see them as being on two different sides. They didn't silence Charlie Kirk. They amplified Charlie Kirk. The power structure never cared about that boy. They used him. And he's more useful to them now than he was the day before. He's more useful to them dead than he was alive. Listen, you don't defeat someone like this, someone like a Charlie Kirk, a tool like him, by letting that tool mold you into exactly what they want you to be. That killer didn't deliver justice. If you think they did, he didn't. He delivered to the power structure an even more enhanced weapon. He made a mediocre, but dangerous and polarizing figure, Charlie Kirk, into now an impeachable icon for the very fan base that he most likely despises. And he made criticism of Charlie Kirk's ideas. Now it's disrespect for the dead. This is not resistance. This is a gift. This is a gift to the very security state that he probably thought he was attacking. Now it's stupidity. Or maybe, as the conspiracy theories are already speculating, what actually happened was just a purge of an expendable asset to create a more powerful symbol. Oh, they'll use his death. Oh, how they will use it. They will use his death to paint every dissenting voice, every cry for a more just world. They'll paint it with the same bloody brush. They're going to use his death to avoid once again ever having to look in the mirror. They're going to hold Charlie Kirk's body up as a shield against any examination of the society that created him. And the society that created his killer. The society that they made and that they rule, and you didn't do anything now but strengthen their hold on that society. They're going to use his corpse as a pulpit to preach from. And you just validated all the lies that they're going to be preaching. You understand me?
Tell them truth.
Because listen, the truth is the Charlie Kirks of the world are not the enemy. The enemy is the society, it's the system, it's the power structure, it's the so-called civilization that creates boys like Charlie Kirk. I call him a boy because that's what he is to me. I'm 54 years old. That's what he is to me, or that's what he was. And also because he presented a childish, simplistic cartoon portrait of America that only a young boy could ever believe in. He presented an America without complexity, without guilt, without the burden of their terrible history. Well, that's a seductive product. And America has always been an eager market for that sort of a product. He existed because of supply and demand. You demand and the power structure supplies. The killer and the killed are the products of the same sick society. Kirk and his killer, and the other 18,535 victims and their killers. And wallahi, if you don't clock this reality, if you don't understand this reality, and if you let yourself get swept up in all the narratives and all the counter narratives, then you might just end up being like one of them, on one side or the other side of that gun, because the machine is already spinning. The machine, that same machine that Charlie Kirk served so faithfully. They're spinning the narrative now. They're going to label him as a martyr for free speech, a victim of left-wing extremism. And they're going to use his death. They're going to use it to demand more surveillance, more censorship, more policing, more militarization of the police against their opponents, more police powers. They're going to use his blood to sanitize his ideology and to legitimize every poisonous thing that he ever said. And some of you are out here cheering about what happened. Well, you're fools. Why, when you celebrate, all you do is elevate and strengthen their narrative. Charlie Kirk was not an outlier. He was a product. He was the logical output of a system that's designed to generate exactly what he was. Like I said, he didn't create the demand. The demand was already there. He just exploited it. He sold a fantasy, like I say, a fantasy where all of the problems of modern America, economic decay, economic despair, cultural displacement, and cultural unrest, political powerlessness, these are all not the inevitable results of late-stage capitalism and a dying empire. No, it's all the fault of immigrants. It's all the fault of minorities, of wokeism, some internal enemy that's not in power. Well, now he's been killed. And his death is going to be used to service that same system. The security state benefits, the politicians that he supported benefit, the media benefits because they get endless hours now of content, of debate, of fear-mongering, of polarization mining. You understand me? The entire apparatus of control gets a massive boost. His killing was not an attack on the system. It was a gift to the system. You didn't extinguish a fire, you just scattered the embers and made it more dangerous. The individual who pulled that trigger, their motives are irrelevant. It doesn't matter if they saw themselves as a revolutionary or they saw themselves as a vigilante. Their actions serve a deeply counter-revolutionary purpose. You understand me? You didn't help Muslims. You didn't help so-called minorities. You didn't help immigrants. You didn't help women. You didn't help anyone. All you did was exactly what they created Charlie Kirk to goad you into doing. Please understand me. You contributed now. Whoever did this contributed to exactly the climate that they created Charlie Kirk to create. No, they're both servants of chaos. The killer and the killed. No, you don't need a bullet. You need a brain. You need a mind that can't be manipulated. You need an inflammable heart, a heart that can stay calm, cool, and collected when everything around you is in flames. That's what you need. And wallahi, you can't let the hatred of a people cause you to act unjustly, or to advocate or to endorse injustice, or to celebrate injustice. Don't let that boy's enmity towards us and ours towards him make you think that his murderer is our ally. No, you don't answer words with bullets. You know, back in the day, back in the time of the Sahaba, when the Muslims would fight against the kuffar, well, the kuffar, they would bring their drummers and they would bring their singing girls to egg them on. Nobody ever killed them. Well, that's what Charlie Kirk was. You don't win a war by targeting the singing girls and the drummers of your enemy. That's no strategy. I've said many, many times, you have to erect your partitions around your discourse, around your people, around what you let into your mind, or you're going to lose your focus and you're going to lose your purpose and you're going to get confused and you're going to make bad decisions. You're going to make wrong decisions, unjust decisions, immoral decisions, because you let yourself get provoked. No, for me personally, I didn't care about Charlie Kirk yesterday, the day before, and I don't care about him now. I don't mourn and I don't celebrate. That's strategic indifference. And I don't respect anyone who tries to tell me that I'm supposed to grieve. And I don't respect anyone who tells me that I'm supposed to be happy. What is he to me or me to him? He certainly isn't more important to me than the most likely hundreds of thousands of my brothers and sisters that you cut down in Gaza. You didn't mourn any of them, and I didn't tell you to, because I already know how you are. I already know that your performance of mourning over Charlie Kirk has nothing whatsoever to do with respect for human life. He was just a vessel for an ideology that you hold sacred. And it's an ideology that dehumanizes people. It's an ideology that disregards the sanctity of life. And we've seen that on full display for the last 2 years. So no, obviously not. I'm not the least bit interested in accommodating your weaponization of selective compassion and selective sympathy. Now, if you want to paint my indifference, if you want to spin my indifference as if it is approval of the crime that was committed, well, okay, I already know that you never do anything but lie anyway. And I know that you are from exactly the same manipulated, mutated, mutilated, and maladjusted population that created the demand that the power structure met by giving you Charlie Kirk, and that gave you his killer. Meaning you're just part of that mob in America, that same collective monster that's responsible for the American genocide of the indigenous people, that's responsible for genocides in Guatemala, genocides in Bangladesh, in Iraq, in Cambodia, in East Timor, in West Papua, and in Gaza. And you're the same collective monster that's responsible for every atrocity, every heinous crime that your country has ever committed. As far as I'm concerned, you poisoned Charlie Kirk's mind before he could even have a chance at a decent life, a moral life. And you poisoned the mind of the one who took the life that Charlie Kirk had. So spare me your counterfeit moralizing. No, you turned your country into a psychological and a spiritual torture chamber. And then your country turned the global South into a physical and an economic torture chamber. And now that system, that same system that you're serving, is turning inwards on you now. I told you that political violence, division, and terrorism, and civil unrest, and turmoil, I told you all this was going to be coming home. Why? Because that's your business model. That's your business model. And you're the only market left to vanquish. And the more you give yourself up to all these twisted, polarizing, hateful narratives, well, all you're doing is playing along with your own demolition.
has finally appeared in court, and while testimonies from his Discord messages have been made public, all of this has only raised even more troubling questions. For the first time, the suspect spoke directly to the camera, and the moment he heard about the possibility of facing the death penalty was chilling.
Tyler James Robinson.
Thank you for being here, Mr. Robinson. I'm Judge Graff. Mr. Scortis.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. You're probably already aware of my presence or why I'm here, but if not, I am not entering an appearance. I'm not counsel on this case. I'm working with the county to get counsel assigned, but we need you to allow for the appointment of counsel.
His reaction, the flicker in his eyes, the stiffness in his body, the strange movements, needs to be dissected carefully. When you study it closely, it doesn't come across like a young man carrying out a lone act of violence. It feels more like the response of someone caught in a larger operation, someone who knows he was just a pawn in a bigger game. That bigger picture, ladies and gentlemen, is the Zionist machine. It fits with the disturbing reality we've been uncovering that this wasn't random at all, but a silencing of one of America's few rising voices beginning to challenge Israel's stranglehold on US politics. And when I recall that interview where a former Mossad agent boldly bragged that the world is our stage and we can do anything without a trace, it all begins to fall into place. Before we dig deeper, let's watch Robinson's reaction in that courtroom. And while you're here, like this video so YouTube can't bury it the way they've been censoring anything connected to Charlie's assassination. Subscribe if you haven't already, because what I'm about to show you is explosive.
Other business that we need to address today, counsel.
Just for the court's information, we did file just recently, within the last few minutes, a notice of intent to seek the death penalty that was filed by Utah County Attorney Jeff Gray. So that should be in the court's file.
Now, here's where it gets even murkier. Evidence is emerging that the FBI is actively concealing crucial details and even fabricating communications to prop up their official narrative. One so-called communication document recently released looks more like a screenplay than a real conversation. In just a few lines of text, the alleged shooter somehow manages to do everything: confess outright, confirm the weapon type, describe it wrapped in a towel, explain his motive, clear the decoy, George Zinn, admit to bullet engravings, confirm a wardrobe change, outline how long he planned the whole thing, and even reveal that a pre-written confession notes conveniently existed but has now been destroyed.
One part that I just can't really wrap my head around, right? The evidence that the FBI has brought forward, that the mainstream media has brought forward, seems to point to that this Tyler was some type of trans kid lone shooter on a roof. But the fact that I can't wrap my head around is the fact that I can probably give you 150,000 reasons why Israel would benefit from Charlie Kirk being assassinated. I could actually almost guarantee you that the current government in Israel that is blackmailing the most powerful government in the entire world would have fallen, had Charlie Kirk continued speaking the way he was speaking. So I can give you all the reasons in the world why Israel would want to assassinate Charlie Kirk. I can't give you one why Tyler would. You mean to tell me that some kid that seemed like a good kid, seemed like he had great parents, somehow met some boyfriend that's trans that we don't even know that was trans? Like we know nothing really about this boyfriend.
And as if that's not already absurd, he suddenly tells his boyfriend that his dad is a diehard MAGA supporter, as though that's breaking news in their relationship, and then bizarrely worries that his father and grandfather will be upset if he doesn't return home with the rifle, not about the fact that he just committed murder. To top it off, this so-called 22-year-old terminally online Zoomer suddenly starts talking in phrases that sound like a police manual: squad car, drop point, swept the area, my vehicle until I died of old age, my old man. Sorry, but I don't buy it for a second. It reeks of a script patched together to close the case quickly and cover the tracks of whoever was truly behind this.
Point you in this direction. You guys remember Bibi recently was on a PR blitz, despite the fact that he was, fighting this 96,000 front war because Israel didn't do nothing. Okay. He was doing a ton of podcasts in America. He went on to Patrick Bet-David's podcast. He went on to Brandon Tatum's podcast. He went on to the Nelk Boys podcast. Anybody find it weird he didn't do Charlie Kirk's show? Tommy very quickly told us that Charlie was penning love letters to him in May. I just love you so much. It's amazing. They were so close. The boys just hits him up like, hey, I know we're fighting this 97,000 front war because we're always the victims, but do you want to just come and maybe stay at my place for the weekend here in Israel? Like, that's the vibe that Bibi was rushing to present to the media. So why didn't he do Charlie Kirk's show? I'll leave it as a question for you guys. Common sense, okay? I don't like small lies. And remember, Bibi started this. I am responding to his shamelessness, shameless misrepresentation of what Charlie was going through and what Charlie was saying. Because, and I want to be clear, to me right now, it feels, and I'm using a corporate term here, a bit like a hostile takeover, okay? Charlie builds the company organically on the basis of Charlie and Charlie's honest ideas. Suddenly, that company's got a lot of money, and Charlie's honest ideas are starting to change or maybe add more color. And now he's getting financial threats. He's being called names. He increasingly, he's being told who and what he's allowed to speak to. And he's taking a stance. He's taking a stand privately up to these people. And then it doesn't matter anymore because Charlie's dead. And those very same people who were pressing him are now doing, like, very quickly trying to set in stone that, Charlie, essentially the energy is Charlie died for Israel. He's just one of us. Nobody asks any more questions. That is literally untrue, and we're not going to allow it.
And here's where the Zionist fingerprints show even clearer. In the days before Charlie's assassination, reports surfaced that some Zionist donors were openly threatening him. This wasn't just rumor. Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson themselves confirmed it.
On TV, that's a real close shot where that first guy is on that first stair. It's a real close shot. And Charlie going from the left to the right would also go along with that. If you go up here to the Losi Center, it's all the way over there. I mean, that's a much longer shot than I guess a much longer shot than I thought of when I saw it on television. So that's the report here from UVU. The other thing that everyone's ignoring is, how did he get the gun? If there was people who were on the Discord with him trying to get him the gun, to pick up the gun, that's called a gun drop. That's really super critical information. They left that totally out of today's, Plus, if there's a spent chamber, if there's a spent bullet in the chamber, how did it get back in the magazine? How did he disassemble the gun without a screwdriver? All these questions. So we got a lot of questions to answer yet.
You see the pattern? And then, almost too conveniently, a condolence letter addressed to Charlie's family appeared from a Zionist rabbi, dated September 2nd. Let that sink in. 8 solid days before the assassination even took place, the letter was already written. Was this prophetic compassion or a slip in timing that exposed foreknowledge of what was to come? To me, that looks less like sympathy and more like a chilling clue.
Also, let me be blunt. I don't know why his parents didn't give him a lawyer. I don't know why his parents didn't give him a lawyer. Why is he's been locked up now? What's today's Tuesday? They caught him on Friday, right? Thursday night, late, around midnight. I don't know why it's a capital crime. And in Utah, I think they got the firing squad they can use. Don't understand why he has not talked to a lawyer in 4 days. I don't know why his parents haven't gotten a lawyer. Why he's waiting upon having the citizens of Utah pay for a public defender.
And it doesn't stop there. Candace dropped another bombshell when she revealed that billionaire Bill Ackman confirmed he hosted a meeting with Charlie on August 4th and 5th. Just think about the weight of that. One of the most powerful financial figures in America sitting down with a man who, at that point, was already facing Zionist threats. The very next day, on August 6th, Charlie was on air with Megyn Kelly, and you could hear the energy in his voice, the urgency in his tone.
This past Easter Sunday, they are telling me that he showed up on drugs, and he was spouting out of his mouth about political stuff. And at this point, they felt that he could not be around children, that they felt that he had become increasingly more radical, increasingly more dangerous, and just sort of off the rails. They said that they're unhappy that the media is presenting him in this like manner, like he's just this kind of like soft soft guy or like, a person that was just transitioning. There's like nothing problematic. There's no prodding. They don't buy the story. Okay. Lance's family is telling me that they are not buying the current story and that they feel that more people are involved. First and foremost, they say that a lot of information should be able to be discerned by his devices because he was, according to them, deep web.
This is why I keep telling you, the official narrative doesn't hold water. From the suspect's odd confession to the FBI's doctored files, from Zionist donors issuing threats to condolence letters written before the fact, the puzzle pieces are forming an image too big to ignore. And in that image, the hand of war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu's machine, the same hand that crushes Gaza daily, reaches all the way into America.
Well, when you listen to the press conference announcing charges against Tyler Robinson, particularly at the state level in Utah, it sounds like an open and shut case, doesn't it? Surveillance footage, text messages, parents that turned him in, an exit wound right out of the neck or shot in the neck, all from the front, all pretty straightforward. DNA evidence right on the trigger of the gun. They find the gun, they find shell casings with Antifa messages written on them. So done, move along here, nothing to see. The text messages seem like they're pretty darn damning, laying everything out exactly how he did it, his regrets about doing it, how he felt like he needed to do it, all of it. So just move along,
It's
right?
a very complete story.
Yeah, it's very convenient.
Are you satisfied? Are you not satisfied?
I don't know. I'm not satisfied, but there's emerging video evidence and inconsistencies that paint a totally different picture here, raise questions. Was this guy a patsy, that he had perhaps nothing to do with it at all? For one thing, the FBI only released a video that shows the alleged shooter running, but the camera on the building would have shown him laying in a prone position, firing the shot, as you can see here on your screen. So we only get after this individual is running. We don't get him laying in a prone position. We certainly don't get him firing a gun, even though the camera was pointed in that position and would have absolutely covered the prone position of this shooter. The FBI's own video they released on their YouTube channel doesn't show it, but it's alleged in the indictment. They say it, and the Utah state prosecutors say it as well, that they had elbow prints, they have knee prints, and he was laying in a prone position and fired this kill shot. One shot, that's all it took. He even saved the shell casing that was found later in the forest because it's a bolt-action rifle, so you don't pop it out. It would have stayed inside of the rifle. Then they chose, though, to cut off the first few seconds of this video. We'd love to see the actual footage of this, show us him laying there. The thing is, it's happening right at the exact same moment that Charlie Kirk is being shot. When we see him running, we know this because of the timestamp. When you see, of course, the rooftop shot from inside the walkway in the cafe area of the campus, we match that with the video, of course, from inside the university walkway, and you can see him already sprinting as people are ducking. He's already in full sprint as people begin to duck. So he picks up the rifle and runs at just a full sprint, and the people are just now reacting to this. Again,
now, do
show
we
us the
have
footage.
the video of him jumping? Because I also
here.
have questions about that. When he jumps off, there is a lot of commotion already in the quad area because a shot's been fired and someone's been killed or dead. Why are the people in the background walking so casually at a casual gait if just a corner away from them people are screaming and running and those people are just walking casually? Does that make sense to you?
There's a lot that doesn't make sense to me. I mean, and what kind of gun? Did he throw the gun down? Did it adjust the scope as he throws it off the roof there? Was he carrying the gun at all? It appears that he is, if you look at the high-def version of this. But interestingly, the FBI's own website on their own YouTube channel shows this. After he shot and killed Charlie Kirk, he jumped off the roof and ran away. He left a gun and ammunition in a wooded area near the university. This is the YouTube video that the FBI published initially. And I hadn't caught this before, but they're saying clearly in this video, he shot and killed Charlie Kirk. He, in this video, is the one that we're after. He jumped off and ran away. He shot and killed Charlie Kirk. Well, how do you know that at this point when you publish this video? How do you know that he's the one specifically that shot and killed Charlie Kirk? Where in this video does it show it? Please show it to us. So the FBI's own YouTube channel says this. There's a lot of other evidence I want to get to here in a moment, but I do want to bring in an ex-prosecutor, U.S. Marine John Deaton, former U.S. Senate candidate who knows these things inside and out, both from the defense position and on the offensive position as a prosecutor. John, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
So I guess when you're as a defender, as a defense attorney specifically, maybe put on your defense attorney hat for a second here, and you're looking at this indictment both at the federal level, at the state level, you see a lot of loopholes here. What are they?
Well, the first thing is we've learned that the suspect, this guy, has not cooperated. So if that's true, then there's no confession. Normally in a situation like this, the FBI would rush to get a confession, which alleviates a lot of the loopholes that you're starting to point at. And so really what you're engaging here doing right now for your audience is exactly asking questions where the dots the government cannot connect. And listen, to execute someone, you're going to have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. So the government's going to have to answer some of these questions. Where is the rifle? Where's the videos? Defense attorney, first thing I'm going to want to do is hit the government with discovery request that says, give me every video. What about neighborhood cameras, all the Ring cameras? And then you start basically working backwards to establish a timeline and whether or not you can poke reasonable doubt holes in that timeline.
Have you guys heard of bearskin hoodie? I'm sure you have. You see me wearing it right now. I love this thing. And so many of my friends have bought them. They absolutely love them. These things are like a tank. People are buying their winter gear right now, and you're going to get an unbelievable discount if you just pay attention to what I'm about to tell you here. You get 60% off. These things are fantastic. Everyone in my family now has one, and they love them. My son loves it. And you have these removable patches you can get right on their website, too. You want to put a flag there, which I have. Also put the Don't Tread on Me patch right here on the side. Bearskin makes incredible stuff. They're running a 60% off deal right now, but only if you get your hoodie early. This hoodie is built like a tank. 340 GSM micro fleece, 10 pockets, clean, rugged fit that looks awesome. It's brilliantly sturdy. This hoodie is built really strong. Plus it zips right into heavy storm rain jacket as well. So you can slide it right inside if you want to put that shell over top of it. It'll be sent straight to your phone. You can check it out later if you're busy. We're seeing there was a camera right behind Charlie Kirk. Where is that video evidence that would show the trajectory of the bullets? There's apparently a TPUSA individual who took the camera down, has that information. You can see here he grabs it right out of the back of the tent and then puts it in a bag. I know Candace Owens has been asking, hey, can we see this footage, please? It would certainly answer the questions, which trajectory this bullet came from. In addition to which, we also have now evidence that the university has already been doing construction work on the exact site. So we have overhead camera footage now showing like they're actively almost like taking over this crime scene. I mean, this is to my mind, still a crime scene. So now the university is already paving over this entire area. What would you say as a defense attorney?
I would say that the first motions I would be filing was a spoliation motion under the law. And if the government can't produce that evidence, then you would get a spoliation charge where the judge would say to the jury, the government did not secure this evidence. You can assume that it was not in favor of the government's theory of the case, and therefore the evidence has been spoiled. You can, as a defense attorney, I would zero in on the person jumping off the roof saying, where is the gun? And then you break it down in the milliseconds of he didn't have time to break that rifle down. The rifle would not fit in his backpack regardless. Where is the rifle? And, that's one big issue where then you start getting a chalkboard and saying reasonable doubt number one, reasonable doubt number two, and you just list out all this evidence piecemeal.
Now, I have one more question about how the FBI is kind of peeing in the pool here because they're showing up for media appearances, which continues to change the narrative. Kash Patel even saying he was there to begin with is getting in the way of investigators. What does that hand a defense in terms of what they're saying? I mean, we all know any kind of litigation, you need to be quiet to make your best case.
Absolutely. And the fact that Kash Patel tweeted out immediately that they had the suspect when in fact they didn't. They had that George Zinn fella, the elderly guy, acting as a decoy. You can make a big mountain of evidence just out of that. And then you start getting into other theories of alternate explanations that caused Charlie death, a rush to judgment. Listen, this isn't a slam dunk. And listen, Charlie Kirk deserves justice. Anyone who was in there deserves justice, be brought to justice, I should say, that was involved in this assassination. But, you know, Kash Patel, quite frankly, objectively, is getting in his own way.
So what you're saying to us, sorry, go ahead.
No, I want to ask you before we let you go here, from a Marine perspective, that's, you know, part of your background as well, not just as a prosecutor and a defense attorney. But when you see that timeline and you see this individual in full sprint mode, and when you match up the timestamps and seeing he's in full sprint mode when the people in the audience are just about to start ducking, like, does that comport with what your experience in the military would be? Sort of a pop up and take off really that fast with a rifle after a shot like that?
No, not at all. And that's what I meant by they're going to, a defense attorney will slow the video up and highlight everything that you're highlighting to drive that reasonable doubt. But it doesn't match your own common sense. And then obviously you're going to get trained professionals as expert witnesses who can also poke holes in it that it's just inconsistent with reality.
All right, John Deaton, we appreciate you joining us as we're unpacking this, but something just is not adding up here. We're hearing from judges and lawyers, just like yourself, who are saying there's a lot of problems with this case right now. You know, so.
So, Max, before we get into the ramifications of this assassination in terms of civil liberties and repression, let's talk a little bit about the article that you just published about Kirk's alienation or distance from the Zionist lobby. I know you've been writing about Kirk for some time.
Yeah, I've been writing about him since 2015, 3 years after he started TPUSA, which became the largest, most influential conservative youth organization in history. And at that time, he was at the forefront of a massive infusion of Israel lobby cash into his group through the David Horowitz Freedom Center, which was basically making him the property of Israel in exchange for this sort of Faustian bargain. He was going to be at the top of the conservative youth grassroots or astroturf grassroots. And so he could talk about race, immigration, all the social issues, and take the most extreme.
See what Max said? The Zionists sicked them on the blacks. That's the fuck they did. The small hats paid him to go after Dr. King and everybody else. Then he tried to make a shift and he paid for it. But they paid him to target us and slander us, and they paid him well. Because his whole campaign was about pushing we were the problem. And who was paying for that microphone? We telling you. It was the Zionists, the Israeli lobby. That's crazy.
Extreme lines possible, say whatever he wanted, as long as he pushed this so-called Judeo-Christian relationship and constantly talked about the Judeo-Christian roots of the country and supported Israel and attacked BDS, the BDS movement, which was growing on campus at the whenever he could. And so Charlie Kirk was actually at the forefront of many of the blacklisting operations that have targeted college professors as well as students. Like he was in the same circles as those who were behind Canary Mission, which is now being used to target green card holders and visa holders for deportation under Trump. So I was covering it early on before anyone had heard about him. He was like a baby-faced activist then, but he was obviously very hardworking, talented, a huge asset for them. And flash forward to July of this year. Charlie Kirk is the most influential conservative activist, period. He is on his way to possibly becoming the next president. Almost certainly would have become senator even though he's from Illinois. And he runs, I mean, TPUSA is major, but there's a crisis taking place. Charlie Kirk is under pressure from his own grassroots on the issue of Israel. Israel's exerting under Netanyahu so much control on Trump amid a genocide that the grassroots have turned against it. And if you look at recent polling, YouGov polling, Pew polling, all of them show about only 25% of Republicans under 35 support Israel over the Palestinians. If you actually pay attention to what Nick Fuentes, who's the most influential right-wing, America First streamer, says, they're not just upset over Jewish influence. They're not just being anti-Jewish. They're actually upset by the same things that upset us. The deliberate starvation of a civilian population unfolding in real time, and then watching their president just fold to a foreign apartheid state. And so this pressure was building within Charlie Kirk's camp, and Charlie Kirk himself was beginning to turn, and it all exploded out in the open at the Student Action Summit, which I believe was in Tampa, Florida, in July 2025. And that's where Charlie Kirk brought Tucker Carlson, someone who had already turned on this issue, on stage to not only talk about how Jeffrey Epstein was possibly a Mossad agent, but to call for those who had gone and fought for Israel, American Jews who had gone to fought for Israel's military rather than the U.S. military, to be stripped of their citizenship. And he called out Bill Ackman, one of the most influential Zionist billionaires in the US, who is a Netanyahu cutout, who had been sort of manipulating and bullying Harvard into submission. His money got Claudine Gay as president out at Harvard. He mocked Bill Ackman as a financial con artist. He literally called him a scam artist and questioned where his money came from. And the crowd was cheering and delighting in this entire spectacle. Megyn Kelly from Fox was calling Jeffrey Epstein a Mossad agent. Then Charlie Kirk opened up the floor to a debate on the very issue of Zionism and brought on an anti-Zionist Jew, a comedian named Dave Smith, to debate a Zionist apparatchik at Newsweek named Joshua Hammer. And Dave Smith mopped the floor with him. He's very effective. He was also talking about human rights abuses, and the crowd was clearly with him. And after this summit, Charlie Kirk was bombarded with furious text messages, phone calls. There may have been meetings as well, very tense meetings as well, with his donors, the people who built him up. And they said, we built you up. We can take all of this away from you if you don't stop this. And we are laying down the law. And this offended him, alienated him. He was not used to being talked to like that, where as though he were property. But, when you join the firm, you don't get to leave. And at the same time, I was told by a longtime friend of Charlie Kirk that he was frightened by the way he was being treated. Basically, a mafia was reading him the riot act. And he wasn't the only one who was frightened. I was told that, in this, the source is someone who knows people in the White House. Donald Trump's frightened. Donald Trump is afraid to defy Netanyahu. He's afraid about what can happen. And I was told that
After that
during one of Netanyahu's or several of Netanyahu's recent visits to the US, I think he's made 4 visits this year, which is unprecedented. Listening devices were planted by Israeli agents on the Secret Service's emergency response vehicles. Stingray devices, some kind of listening device, electronic surveillance device. This was found by the Secret Service. It was told to the White House. Obviously, the White House kept it under wraps. And this has, made people nervous inside the White House and the national security team. And this is not something unprecedented. Politico in 2019 reported, citing 3 former U.S. officials, that Israel had planted Stingray devices around the White House to spy on Trump's cell phone communications. Boris Johnson, the former
come on, right, bro. No, but the mainstream media don't even want to talk about that. That's recently when Netanyahu come over here, these people start bugging stuff so they can listen to everything Trump's saying and what the U.S. is doing. That's crazy. That's crazy. Hell yeah, Trump's scared because they letting them know. They don't go down on no Charlie Kirk. They're letting Trump and the other politicians know. They definitely get you and blame it on a tranny.
Israeli PM wrote in his memoir that Netanyahu went to use his personal toilet, and afterwards, his personal security team found a listening device in his toilet, like immediately afterwards. Tony Blair told his own team, when you go to Israel, do not speak about anything sensitive in government buildings or cars. So I don't think I'm being fed a bunch of conspiracy theories here. And what I reported based on background sourcing matches up with the things that Charlie Kirk said in public, that he was being bombarded by what he called Jewish stakeholders, meaning his funders, and that he felt that he could not express his own views anymore as an American. And he was starting to move in public. So consider the consequence of a figure like Charlie Kirk, who's on his way to basically inheriting the mantle of Trumpism at some point, and who controls a large segment of that movement, taking the base away from the Judeo-Christian relationship, taking it away from rock solid support for Israel, as Israel is in a 7-front war carrying out genocide. And Netanyahu believes that he has this short window of time to basically carry out regime change in Iran. It would have been catastrophic. And I also learned from multiple sources that Charlie Kirk actually took it upon himself personally to go to the White House and personally lobby Trump against bombing Iran back in June, and that he was shut down. Trump angrily rebuked him because Trump is simply afraid. He's completely controlled at this point by Netanyahu. So am I saying that Israel killed Charlie Kirk? How would I know that? There's no evidence for that. But how am I going to not report this fascinating background about where the conservative movement in the Republican Party itself are going on the question of Israel, when I'm learning all of this after his death? And there are so many unusual aspects to the investigation, so many mishaps by the FBI, and such strange behavior by the Israeli government and Netanyahu himself since Charlie Kirk's killing, that it has fueled speculation by millions of people online that there may have been an Israeli role. I mean, why wouldn't they speculate when Israel seems to assassinate everyone that defies it in its own region, and has even dispatched thousands of pagers to like low-level Hezbollah members and their families to assassinate them? It's something that we would expect in this atmosphere, but I am not making any direct claim that Israel assassinated him. What I'm saying is, I think they would have taken him out. The Israel lobby would have taken him out for sure, but they would not need to do it physically. They could just defund him and then castigate him, as they're doing with figures like Candace Owens or Tucker Carlson, who have turned against them. But so this is just a fascinating look, and it won't be my last one, at Charlie Kirk's final days and the political pressure he was under.
How much money was he getting, number one? And number two, can you talk about Netanyahu's reaction and because you write about it in your piece, his interactions with Kirk?
Well, this is something that was not known to the public. And I hope to be to be able to report this out in greater detail. But I was told that by a friend of Kirk, someone close to Kirk, who was speaking to them in his last days, that Netanyahu actually came in and personally offered to re-up Kirk's TPUSA organization with a massive infusion of Zionist money. And his budget all at its height was something like $80 million. I mean, we're talking about a lot of money. You can just watch the Student Action Summit that became so controversial. There's nothing like it on the left or even within the Democratic Party's associated organizations. It's very flashy. Look at Charlie Kirk's final moments. I mean, it looked almost like he was running for president. It looked like a Trump rally. And look at the he had enormous amounts of former Navy SEALs and special forces guys around him, like executive security. You have to have a lot of money for that. So he already had the money, but he was at risk of losing much of it. And Netanyahu comes in and says, basically, come to the dark side, stop talking about this, and we will take care of you. I will call my cutouts and they'll have everything handled. And Charlie Kirk refused. And that was what I'm learning is that was not the first time he refused someone close to Netanyahu in recent months. And it left him feeling cold and anxious. And even in the words of the friend, frightened. This is something that I've had some conversations with other influential people in the right-wing influencer world since my piece came out. And basically what they want me to know is that this is something they're all facing at all of the major right-wing media organizations associated with Trump, that there is no space for them to criticize Israel. And one figure I could point to, I've actually been on his podcast. He's one of the top right-wing podcasters. Like if you go to Rumble, which is sort of the YouTube alternative, because so many right-wing voices were being banned there. And even us, Chris, like more on the left, we get like demonetized left and right and suppressed on YouTube. So we've even turned to Rumble. But you go to Rumble, like Tim Pool is one of the first. If he's live streaming, that comes up right away. And so he gets enormous amounts of views. And, I went on his show right after October 7th, and he gave me the floor and let me speak my mind. Tim Pool was summoned to a meeting with Netanyahu during one of Netanyahu's visits under Trump's second term at the Blair House where Netanyahu was staying, with just a few other right-wing GOP affiliated influencers, like media influencers. And he was not allowed to talk about what happened. I think one of his co-hosts or guests brought up the meeting on his podcast, and he was, you could see he was extremely nervous, extremely anxious. And it's like, was he captured somehow by Netanyahu? I mean, the pressure that Netanyahu himself is personally bringing on the right-wing podcast world really shows his anxiety about the rebellion that's taking place among the youth. And after my article came out, which got over 100,000 views, just unique views on our website. And I did an interview with Tim Dillon, who's a very popular comedian about this, which has erupted. It's like 600,000 views now, just exploding across social media as people were already talking about this issue. Netanyahu takes to Twitter X for like the 6th or 7th time since Charlie Kirk's killing to declare that Charlie Kirk was a true friend of Israel. And this time it felt like Netanyahu was overcompensating and was afraid of the truth getting out, which is that, as Charlie Kirk's longtime friend told me, Charlie Kirk had grown to hate Netanyahu, as every U.S. leader has. Remember the open mic with Macron and Obama, where they're complaining, the hot mic, like in 2012 or something, and they're complaining about Netanyahu, and they're like, you think you have trouble dealing with him. He calls me every day. That's where Charlie Kirk was. He thought he was a disgusting bully and manipulator. And so Netanyahu's worried that Charlie Kirk's base posthumously will start to take on that sentiment towards him. And you can see they're deploying Ben Shapiro everywhere they can. Ben Shapiro is like the leading media asset for Netanyahu in the United States. He just feels AstroTurf to me. He even jokes on Twitter about having 6 million followers, but he seems so sort of unlikable and talentless, and he's pushing a kind of form of warmed over, softened Trumpism that just doesn't feel authentic. And he was on Fox News with the other major Zionist enforcer in the media who Netanyahu helped personally credit with convincing Trump to bomb Iran, Mark Levin, just days before Charlie Kirk's assassination. And they were complaining about Charlie Kirk alluding to him allowing Tucker Carlson on stage this summer and saying, you can't have a big tent, you cannot allow these kooks in, and you can't be at the front of the church allowing a congregation of anti-Israel nut jobs into your realm. Then Charlie Kirk goes to the front of the church 4 days later, a sniper's bullet hits him in the neck, and Ben Shapiro comes out 24 hours later and says, we need to go on our own campus tours and pick up the bloody microphone where Charlie Kirk left it. The subtext is, we're going to go on those campus tours and we're not going to allow this anti-Israel stuff to come into our quote unquote church anymore.
No mistake about it. It is indubious. It is indubious that the alien invasion will be happening. But spoiler alert, for a little bit later on in the video, the 33 people already have their calling card all over this. But before we go ahead and get into that and other things, I do have a question. About a month ago, I made a video about how Peter I Sweat But I Don't Sweat Thiel was going to do a 4-part lecture series in California about the Antichrist. Whatever happened to that, because the very first lecture took place on the 15th, and my thing is, here's this tech giant that's the co-founder of Palantir, a very shady company now within the government. Peter Thiel is a very untrustworthy fellow who on camera had difficulties answering the question whether humans should endure or not. This lecture series has been spoken about with a lot of people. Even news and media have put attention to it. So one would think that they would release video footage and be like, see, what we were talking about was not so bad. It was more in a theological sense. So it really makes you wonder what was being said. And you have to remember that when asked the question if Palantir is laying the groundwork, the framework for the Antichrist, Peter Thiel really didn't answer the question. He didn't really say no. So I came across this video by an individual named Keela. I'm not going to play her video because she pretty much says the same thing I say, but she also said something that connects dots back to a previous event that happened, I believe, last year that most of us stopped talking about. Remember this very bizarre event back in April of 2024 where this individual, Maxwell Azzarillo, lit himself on fire in New York while Trump's court case was going on? Well, around that time, we also found out that he had wrote a manuscript called the Ponzi Papers, and inside this manuscript, he heavily mentions Peter Thiel and his upcoming role.
Hey, want to learn the biggest secret in the world? In March 2023, sketchy billionaire Peter Thiel started a bank run. I did 1,500 hours of research, and I learned all their rotten secrets. The big one is that cryptocurrency is history's first planetary, multi-trillion-dollar Ponzi scheme. That's an economic doomsday device. And when that Ponzi goes insolvent, as all Ponzis must, we'll get the worst economic collapse in world history. And every powerful person you can think of is in on it. Want to know why everything gets worse and more expensive? That's because we live in a secret kleptocracy. That's when the government gets taken over by con artists whose only job is to steal from the public. And I hope you know this is wonderful news, because now that the public knows about the secret kleptocracy, they get to abolish their criminal government. Follow for more, or read this booklet, and you will bend history.
But who was Maxwell Azzarello? Was he just some random conspiracy theorist on his computer connecting dots? Or perhaps maybe he knew something more? The fact that this is playing out in real time, and the fact that Peter Thiel is gaining more and more power, and the fact that the Ponzi Papers is still up for you to read, they did not take it down, leads me to believe they wanted us to know this because they always have to tell us what they're doing ahead of time. It is how their ritualistic karma system works. So they use this guy that looks like a nutjob conspiracy theorist who lit himself on fire, spill the beans. Nobody's going to take him seriously. But if you look into him a little bit further, you can really see he is connected. More than likely, he's possibly some kind of MK Ultra victim, but he's connected in some sort of way. The one-eyed symbolism he kept doing, the free people tongue, it's very obvious what's taking place here. But even though this guy may be an insider, he's not wrong. Peter Thiel is one of the biggest investors of crypto. He made a $200 million investment in Bitcoin and others. So he's one of the biggest investors in crypto. Thiel's venture capital firm made a substantial profit of $1.8 billion on Bitcoin investments before the 2022 market collapse. Very interesting, and I'll get into that as to why. And resumed buying Bitcoin and Ether in 2023, and he still continues to do so today. He is one of the biggest investors in crypto, including Bitcoin. But here's the beauty part of everything. Here is the genius of what they did when it came to the Genius Act, because when it came to the Genius Act, they tied the US dollar to the stable coins, to crypto. And what's also interesting is that they have news and media talking about this, releasing these news articles, and we know who news and media is owned and operated by. But we have these news articles talking about what would happen to the US dollar if the cryptocurrency, these stable coins, were to crash. Well, if there was a massive crash of these cryptocurrencies or a massive rug pull, there would also be a massive sell-off of United States bonds, which would decrease the price of the bonds themselves, causing United States interest rates to spike. Reading this article from theconversation.com, which was actually published very recently, September 6th, it goes on to say that a sudden, unexpected, and drastic increases in United States interest rates could easily translate into a global financial crisis, as banks and governments around the world would suddenly face solvency crises. If interest rates go up, mortgage rates go up, and people can barely afford anything now, and who would swoop in and buy up all these properties? Well, none other than Blackstone. If this were to happen, the safest bet would probably be gold, because that would drastically increase, especially if news came out that there was no gold in Fort Knox. And it really makes you wonder whatever happened to the news story about auditing the gold in Fort Knox. Are they waiting for something like this for a cryptocurrency crash? And then they release news, hey, there's no gold in Fort Knox. And then that decreases the dollar even more, perhaps a all-out crash, but that drastically increases the value of gold. That would be absolutely wild if this is what they're doing. Now, I'm not saying this is what's actually happening, because for YouTube reasons only, this video is only for entertainment purposes. But again, that would be absolutely wild. Reset everything and then rebuild anew with a new digital currency backed by these tech giants and the state. But it would not be just the United States. It would be all these governments around the world. It would be a one world digital currency, because if a crash like this were to happen, it would impact all the economies around the world. So this would be a part of that one world government they would want in 2030. Now, do I believe that Peter Thiel is the Antichrist? No, I do not. But it's very obvious that Palantir, this one world digital currency, and so forth will be laying the groundworks, especially when you involve this one world government as well, which I will go ahead and touch on a little bit later on with this whole alien agenda. But just take a look at this interview from Peter Thiel. He has such a fascination with the Antichrist to the point where it sounds like he's defending the idea. And when he talks about peace and safety and the Antichrist, and again, pretty much defending the idea, you have to remember the idea behind the 2030 agenda, the United Nations 2030 agenda, is peace and safety.
First time in history we can actually imagine human beings destroying the world. That's quite a plot. Now, also, we have the mechanisms that would make world government, a gigantic global surveillance state, is plausible. That seems plausible too. And
And then I think, again, to come back to the Soloviev-Benson plot hole, on its own, they both seem not that desirable. Why would we have a crazy surveillance state? Why would we, why would we do this? But if you're scared enough of these things, that's the weapon. And this is sort of where my speculative thesis is that if the Antichrist were to come to power, it would be by talking about Armageddon all the time. And Peter Thiel, the Antichrist would talk about Armageddon all the time. He'd scare people and then offer to save them. Yes, it's the 1 Thessalonians 5:3. The slogan of the Antichrist is peace and safety. And so, which is nothing wrong with peace and safety, but you have to sort of imagine that it resonates very differently in a world where the stakes are so absolute, where the stakes are so extreme, where the alternative to peace and safety is, Armageddon and the destruction of all things. And then that's where peace and safety gets you way more than it would have in 1750. Rene Girard, in I Saw Satan Fall Like Lightning, one of his books, the Antichrist boasts of bringing to human beings the peace and tolerance that Christianity promised, but has failed to deliver. There are probably, I think there are all these elements where it's downstream from Christianity. You can think of, the poor shall inherit the earth, Sermon on the Mount. Marxist theory is we're going to be more Christian. We're going to accelerate it. We're going to bring it about faster. So there is, the Antichrist probably presents as a great humanitarian, as a great, it's redistributive. It's as an extremely great philanthropist, as an effective altruist. All of those kinds of things. And these things are not, simply anti-Christian, but it is always when they get overly combined with state power, something is very wrong. If you think about the language that we've been using in this program, it's Armageddon is not that taboo. You can just talk about that by referencing the newspapers. Right. We are sleepwalking into Armageddon, maybe not in the Ukraine or the Middle East, but maybe with Taiwan and China. So there are all these. Everybody feels the dread. We can use Armageddon, and maybe it's literal and maybe it's metaphorical, but that's totally acceptable. So that tells you that's not the thing that's taboo. Antichrist is like, wow, what planet are you from? Right. And so that tells me that the existential risks are very selective of the sort that we've given, and the fears about a one world state are downplayed because they are the solution to the other ones. That is the self-governing, politically atheist, humans governing themselves solution to Armageddon is, it's what Bostrom says. It's it's effective world government with extremely effective policing to stop, dangerous technologies from being developed, and to force people to, not have too diverse a set of views, because the diversity of views is what's going to push some scientists to develop technologies they shouldn't be developing. And so we are just so grooved to the Antichrist solution. We don't worry about it because it is actually, it presents itself as the solution to all these others.
But when it comes to really advancing this one world government agenda to get a lot of people on board, you would have to create a common enemy all these governments would have to unite against. So yesterday, I released a video where I included a segment about how news and media were talking about how China fired a missile at an orb. And this is coming about a week after the United States Congress released video footage of the United States military firing a missile at an orb. So I said that's a little too coincidental, but what really tied everything together is that around the exact same time, you had NASA saying that they have proof of ancient life on Mars. And I said this to a much bigger event. And now on top of everything else, interesting timing again, we have NASA coming out and saying that they may have proof that there may have been ancient life on Mars. And I guarantee you anything, I bet my last Cinnamon Toast Crunch They're going to come out and say that some type of hostile alien race from some other planet destroyed life on Mars and is coming to Earth. They're coming back to Earth. And the timing of this just really exposes them. That's what I said, right? I said that with NASA saying this, they're going to go ahead and say that there was a galactic war on Mars. These aliens, these hostile aliens, destroyed life on Mars, and now they're going to be attacking Earth. Well, wouldn't you know, my Cinnamon Toast Crunch looks like it will be safe, because now these news articles are coming out. And I'm reading this from the Visegrad Post. Other news agencies are talking about this, but I'm sure it's going to go ahead and slowly gain steam. But this news article was actually released today, September 16th. Just to come back in a quick edit, if you hear me say certain dates that do not line up, that's because this video was actually completed a couple days ago. Aliens may be 33,000 light years away. Scientists warn of possible life beyond our galaxy. For people out there that do not believe there's nothing to this whole 33 stuff, that we should stop talking about it, even though this is a number that is the highest one can achieve in this ritualistic society that has members in a lot of high positions in this world, and they call themselves the grand architects of the universe, or the God they believe in anyway to be the grand architect of this universe. And if you look into it further, the God they worship is actually Lucifer, which they have a traditional motto and symbol being Ordo ab Chaos, which is order out of chaos. Who says that? Who puts such a specific number to a speculation about aliens from another planet in another, I guess, galaxy or solar system? Now, in a normal world where we do not have these secret societies creating these events and false flags, reading this article, it should say around 30,000, about 30,000. But no, it has to be specifically 33,000. So how did they come up with this number that smart aliens may be living on a planet 33,000 miles away? Well, apparently these team of researchers talking to NASA in their study built a mathematical model of what they consider a reasonable size cosmic haystack. And again, this cosmic haystack just happens to be 33,000 light years in diameter, centered on the Earth. They also picked 8 dimensions of a search for aliens, factors like signal transmission frequency, bandwidth, power, location, repetition, polarization, and modulation, and define reasonable limits for each one. So it really sounds like they are building up their backstory, working on their script for these aliens that will invade Earth. And that I was reading from Business Insider. Even when it comes to this whole 3-Eye Atlas stuff, which I believe they're going to go ahead and use in an event, now they're trying to make it sound less like a comet and more technical if you read the current news articles. And there is a lot of attention going into this 3-Eye Atlas. Remember when news first came out, they were calling it a hostile mothership. And now when you listen to news and media talking about it, they are trying to describe it as more of some type of technology. So yeah, I really feel like this 3-Eye Atlas will be used in some kind of event, or maybe even the catalyst that will start their whole alien agenda that they really want. And they'll probably even say that this 3-Eye Atlas came from this planet that was specifically 33,000 light years away. So China and the United States are definitely working hand in hand to bring forth this fake stage alien invasion. But soon you're going to hear that other countries are also firing upon orbs. And even perhaps next you'll hear that they have been attacked by entities. What I also find interesting about China happens to be that back in 2024, when we were getting all those news articles about Earth having a second moon, remember that? It was like a mini moon and it was exactly 33 feet long. Well, a few years before that, this news article came out talking about how China would launch a fake moon. But let me know if anything stands out to you when it comes to this news clip. Look very good at this news clip.
China wants to launch a fake moon into the sky by the year 2020. Announced last week at an innovation conference, a southwestern Chinese city wants to launch a satellite into orbit that would reflect the sun's rays at night. It will reportedly be 8 times brighter than the real moon, and it could replace streetlights, saving that city more than $200 million a year. However, astronauts are concerned about the increased light pollution it could cause.
So did you see it? If not, I'll go ahead and point it out. To the left, you can see the checkerboard symbolism, and to the top right here, you can see the compass and square. So without a doubt, this alien invasion is indeed coming, but it is going to be heavily scripted and edited by the 33rd people, among others. And oh, so many people are going to fall for it. So many people are going to be tricked by this fake stage alien invasion. And for us that will speak out about it and say that, well, there was many signs before then that it's all fake. Well, we're going to be flooded with bots. We're going to be flooded by NPCs pushing back on these videos. When it came to that Visegrad article that I read from about that planet or alien life 33,000 light years away, just take a look at the comment section. Look at the bots. They're supposed to be different people, but wow, 33,000 light years away. That's quite the long distance relationship. Wow, 33,000 light years away. That's quite a commute for a cup of alien coffee. And these comments sound so similar. These are bots. This is basically dead internet theory in action. But when it comes to bots, NPCs, we're going to hear things like the government has no such technology, even though they can make anything look like anything pretty much with the mix of AI, CGI, 3i, actors, and so forth. They can really put on a tremendous show. This was the same old song and dance when they released bots and NPCs to the comment sections of people saying how the government cannot do certain things to the weather. This will be so much worse than the C-19. Entire channels will get banned just for questioning the massive loss of life that will occur from this fake stage alien invasion. You'll see comments where people will say, of course it's real. My peepaw's doctor's cousin's uncle lost his life due to an alien. So how dare you even question such a thing? You conspiracy theorist, I hate you. I hate you all. Oh, that that's how it's pretty much going to play out word for word. And on the topic of people believing things, there's this individual on TikTok, no less. And again, interesting timing. He's from Panama. Supposedly, he found this meteorite. And as he's holding on to it for days, out pops this alien creature, and people are really believing it. He shows video footage here and there of it moving, of it growing, but then he goes ahead and touches it with his bare hands. And one would think that if he had something like this, an alien life form, if this was real, he would have been raided by now, and this would have been taken away. But again, the whole scary part of this is that there are so many people out there that believe this is real, and we don't know if videos like this are a test to test people to see if they will indeed fall for this alien agenda that's being crafted by certain organizations. So apparently this is his latest video. He's getting a ton of views. He's convincing a lot of people. And again, the timing is just so interesting between this, what NASA is saying, the orbs being fired upon in different countries. The agenda is building up quickly. It's really gathering steam.
Querían verlo. Ha sido bastante. A muchos les gusta, a otros les aterra.
But in this next video, did you hear what happened over in Germany? Now, news articles are saying 16 politicians passed away around the same time, but some are saying 7. So it could be anywhere from 7 or 16. But either way, 7 or 16, authorities are saying that this was just a coincidence.
Don't involve Australia. But what's happening in Germany right now is unreal. And statistically, it's impossible. In just 13 days, 7 candidates from the AfD party have suddenly died, right before crucial local elections. 7 candidates, the same party, same state, same elections. Authorities are calling it a coincidence, but let's be real. The circumstances and timing is wild. So a lot of people might say, who are the AfD? Well, let me explain it to you. They're Germany's right-wing populist party, kind of like if Pauline Hanson's One Nation party had the influence of the Nationals. And they have risen and grown fast because Germany's people are sick of mass immigration, unaffordable housing, rising crime, and a government obsessed with green targets whilst the economy collapses. Does that sound familiar? Now, I'm not saying there's foul play here, but think about the odds. 7 politicians, the same party, dying within 2 weeks of each other, just before voters head to the polls. That's not politics as usual. That's the kind of thing you'd expect to see in a Netflix thriller, not Europe's biggest economy. And here's the state of Germany today. Mass immigration pouring in, crime and unrest is on the rise, the cost of living is climbing, and the government more worried about silencing free speech and protecting its own people. And the AfD, like them or not, they represent the fraction of Germany that have said enough is enough. And yet right before crucial elections, one by one, their candidates are dying. Coincidence? Maybe, and that's what the authorities are saying. But just take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Mass immigration, a broken economy, and political opponents dropping dead before the election. And history shows us that's exactly the kind of environment where instability, extremism take hold. This report actually makes me worried. Statistically, this can't happen. Oh, and just on a lighter note, check out Dan Andrews rubbing shoulders with the Supreme Leader, Kim Jong-un. Sometimes I think to myself, are we living in a simulation? And then I get sent photos like this.
Coffee. Follow me.